G'day team. Thanks for joining us here for another episode of the Grey Man Podcast. I'm your host, Harley Fox. Today on the show, we've got Rod Henderson. Rod's a veteran of the Australian Army, starting off in the infantry, and after he got sick of sleeping in the dirt, he ended up transferring over into a pogue role, as he calls it. I beg to differ, but he became an helicopter air crewman. You can hear all about Rod's story, or read rather, in his book, Stop Screaming, I'm Scared Too. Fantastic read. Really enjoyed this one. Very relatable, very down to earth, and some super exciting stories in there as well. And even better in real life, Rod's a really good human, and we had a great chat during this podcast. Hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for being here. Hey guys, really appreciate you being here. Just please take a second to click that follow or subscribe button on Spotify or YouTube. Pause it, do it now. Beauty. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your support. Go ham on the likes and comments as well, because that really helps push it out into the algorithm and get more eyes on it. You can jump online, get Rod's book, Stop Screaming, I'm Scared Too. Like I said, fantastic read. That's available on his website or Amazon. And jump on my website and grab yourself some merch. Got this shirt, got a whole bunch of other shirts that you'll see me wearing. Thanks for being here, guys. See you soon. The Grey Man Podcast is a veteran-run platform dedicated to sharing authentic experiences from current and former service members. These stories are shared to foster connection, understanding, and support within the veteran community. Episodes may contain raw, emotionally charged content that some listeners may find distressing. Listener discretion is advised. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Grey Man Podcast, its host, or affiliated partners. The Grey Man Podcast assumes no liability for any statements, opinions, or representations made by guests during interviews or discussions. Yeah, they say 90% don't get past 10 and 99% don't get past 20. So
no, good. Good luck, mate.
Top 1%, just me and Joe Rogan up here in the top.
Fucking aim high, mate. Why not? I tag him in shit. He hasn't got back to me. I was also tagging Russell Crowe in my fucking book too to do the audio book. He never got back to me. Maybe someday.
Get Matthew McConaughey to do it.
Why not?
Soothing sounds of Matty.
All right. What do you want to do?
Cool, man. Good to go. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Mate, thanks for having me. Yeah.
No worries. Just finished your book. Actually had a pretty busy week. I was stuck in those storms, the big storm on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I was beach camping in Ballina.
Oh, good times for it, yeah.
So my trailer got torn apart and fucking destroyed, so I had to put an insurance claim in. So yeah.
Busy times. Is that why it's so stinking humid here? Because I'm from Canberra, mate, and it's 15 degrees, 0% humidity there. I'm struggling with my BMI here, mate. I need some more aircon in here.
Yeah. No, it's guaranteed if it's this fucking hot, stifling weather, there's storms coming.
Yeah. Well, it's nearly summer, mate. It's nearly summer.
Yeah. Queensland's vicious. I actually got stuck in the hail the other day in the car, shitting myself.
Mate, the insurance company is a bit nervous.
They're only small.
Mm. Oh, that's all right. But you like the book then? You like that?
Yeah, great. That's what I was saying. I only just finished it because I was busy, but yeah, awesome read.
Thanks, man. Yeah. There's a lot in there. It just all came out. Like I was saying before, I didn't really know what it would become. I just wanted to write it to get it out of my head. All the stuff I'd sort of done over my time in defence to get it down on paper. But then when it really started to take shape, my mates who were close to me, who were helping me, with style and structure and sentence structure. I didn't know anything about that, mate, because I didn't finish school. So I just, my lovely wife was saying they always write my sentences backwards, so she had a work cut out for it too. But, mate, I just sat down and just started banging it out on paper in the chronological order that you read it there, and then found sort of towards the end of the book, the theme was exactly what the title is, the Stop Screaming, I'm Scared Too, because it was a helmet patch I used to wear overseas. And it leads itself to all the crazy near death or close calls that I have throughout the way. And so when I speak to people about it, I like to say that it's not just me that's had those experiences. I'm just a regular soldier, right? Mostly it's these, real high performance special forces guys taking ice baths with shaved legs. And I know some of them are going to listen to me and want to bash me for that. So, but look, I'm certainly not one of those, right? And I'm not a Victoria Cross recipient or a general. And that's kind of what I saw that was on the shelves. And they're all awesome people, and they've got great stories to tell and part of our wartime past, and it should be on the shelves. But I didn't see a lot of people there that were of similar regular shit kicker like me.
Yeah.
And so I found one or two and started reading those, and I thought, fuck, these people have given me the confidence to get out there and write my experiences from a nobody, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually really resonated with that in the first chapter when you were talking about that everybody's story deserves to be heard, and there was a part about you're talking about your dad's, your dad, your granddad, like all of those older generations that we'll never know what they did because they're dead and gone now and they can't tell their stories. But the future generations, if we do what we're doing, we'll be able to hear those stories.
Yeah, and it may not even end up in a book or a movie or whatever. I think it's important to write it down, like I said, to get it out of your head, but also write it down for exactly that, for a bit of a capture of your history for your family. And look, your children probably won't give a shit about what you did because you're dad and you're always going to be dad and a loser and whatever. But your grandkids or your great-grandkids, especially if they get into service and they start seeing what it was like before you, I think that can be really powerful later on. My both grandfathers in the Second World War, opposite sides. I mean, imagine the stories that they've got. None of it's captured. It's just gone.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to be able to read a lot of that. And at the time, you're not mature enough at 17, 18, 19 years old to sit down with your grandparents and say, hey, talk to me. What was it like? I mean, imagine, like, podcasts didn't even exist really back then. Imagine if you could get them on to share some of their experiences.
Yeah, 100%. I was literally one of the reasons I started this podcast was for that. Just, having my granddad's medals and not having any idea of what he did or how he did it or how he felt. Just knowing that he came back pretty broken.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And look, a lot were. And in their own different ways. And I mean, we could talk all week about how they looked after soldiers in the Second World War and First World War for that matter. I see some people coming out now talking about, is there an over diagnosis of post-traumatic stress or mental health in the defence and first responder world? I would argue there's not. It's more known now. We have a lot more knowledge about it, is I guess what I'm saying. And because we now have social media and you can listen to these things, I mean, it's everywhere. We certainly hear it a lot more.
Yeah.
And it's good that people are happy to come out and talk more about it now. There's a lot of organisations that actually give a shit, and particularly about men's mental health. We're always taught, right, to, stiff upper lip and push on, and particularly from my background in infantry, the worst thing you could be is a linger, right? You can never stop and say, I can't do it. If you couldn't keep up, you get a punch in the face. So on a run or whatever it is, right? So you'd never
live it down, yeah.
Well, you'd never live it down, but so you'd never be the dude who goes, hey, I'm not keeping up here either, because you'd be off. You'd be out of the team. So that's something in the men's mental health space that I see now coming full circle, and we're starting to drop that bullshit facade and be able to have a talk about it and still maintain that blokey masculinity aspect we all thrive on.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely becoming more, you tell your mates you love them and ask how they're going and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, it still feels a bit irky and your mates, take the piss, but I think the underlying message and it's genuine now, I think, when people do that. So you've just got to still drop the bullshit facade and maybe admit when you're not doing well and just go, hey, fuck, having a shit day. Last night, mate, I couldn't sleep. I thought, I don't want to let people down, so I thought I'd message you and say, I'm not sure if I can make it. I'm fucking not sleeping. before I just wouldn't have said anything and shown up like a bucket of shit without any sleep. But fortunately, I got there anyway. But yeah, those sorts of things, mate. That's where I find for me, when you drop that bullshit, you can
be more real.
Yeah, 100%. You can be more real.
Yeah, no, that's good. Cool, man. So let's dig into the life of Rod.
Life of Rod.
Obviously, Stop Screaming, I'm Scared Too is Rod's book. That is a great read, as we were saying, and delves into a lot of it.
Yeah.
How did you fucking waffle and have to cut stuff out? Like, it seems just so clear, concise.
You do, mate. And look, the first version of your story is very different to what you see on the shelves.
Yeah.
There was a lot in there that had to get cut out along the way, because I just thought it would initially be a whole bunch of stories about stupid shit I've done in defence, all the dumb infantry stuff that we tended to do, and right through to aviation stuff. But then I saw towards the end that it really was shaped into that theme of shit. There's a lot of close calls and near misses here, even not in a combat scenario, and that really led into how dangerous service life can be, even with all the risk management stuff we have on it. For people that sign on their names on that dotted line, and
I think that's really amplified now during peacetime when you're seeing all the deaths in training.
Yeah, mate, and I'll bang on to the cows come home about that deaths in training stuff towards the end, I guess, if I get the opportunity. But yeah, we want to build a monument for exactly that, for people that have been killed in training, and we're getting some really good traction with it now. I've got to wait till I get the official letter from the National Capital Authority that says we've got a position on Anzac Parade, and once that happens, we'll be full blown at it. But mate, the book came out of just my time in defence. Well, my time growing up, through to the different roles I did in the army. But I had a very vanilla upbringing. I was fortunate. I had two loving parents, and I grew up in a nice place in Newcastle, and sort of didn't. Like, very naive to the world, right? Very naive. And just sort of went to a state school there, but it was always, like, never any good at school, always staring out the window, mate, always thinking about what I want to do next, and there's got to be something else except maths or whatever. And, soon sort of came to odds with my schooling when I found the army was a thing, and sort of there was a TV series called Tour of Duty that came out in the late 80s or 90s or something. It's about these Americans in Vietnam carrying on. I thought, fuck, I want to do that. No one ever plays cook in the backyard, right? Everyone wants to be infantry guy or something. And I thought, well, that's the way I can prove that I'm tough, right? And every young bloke ever, well, I certainly did, wanted to prove I was tough to my old man and all that. So yeah, infantry is what I wanted to do, and I was like 58 kilos wringing wet. I wouldn't have been able to fight my way out of a wet paper bag. But, that's where I was going, right? And, joined up. I was in cadets for a fair while, and then went into reserves. Yeah, from there, Army Reserves, and then went into full-time Army. And Mum and Dad sort of always wanted me, like parents do, to aim high and become an officer and all that sort of stuff. And look, the reality is I wouldn't have had the grades. I didn't even finish school. I left in year 12 because I knew I didn't need that to be in the military, like to pursue a career as a soldier. So,
do you have any shit-kicking jobs before?
Labouring and stuff like that. My old man, who's a builder, and I was going to say hats off to him. If one of my sons had left school, I would have lost my shit. But he just accepted that I was headstrong. That's what I was going to do. So he took me along to all the work sites and made me work hard, and that gave me a pretty strong work ethic before I got into the military. And then, off to Kapooka, mate, to do the training there. And it was at a time when there was no, you didn't get enlisted into a particular job. You just you knew that you had
ACN 500 or whatever it is.
Yeah, you had 20 positions for grunts and 15 for artillery and cooks and whatever else was there. So it was competitive to that degree. But I really wanted infantry, so I tried to work pretty hard. And I guess my Choco experience and that helped as well.
You're a Choco grunt?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. In fact, I say in there that my inability to be the grey man, how how ironic I'm on the Grey Man podcast because I'm actually anything but with this mouth. They stand out, right? Ex-reservists or cadets for that matter at Kapooka, you're always standing a bit taller, you're doing things properly from day one and they pick you straight away. So I was never the Grey Man. But look, I got through all that and did it, but found it just was sort of what I'd expected. I certainly wasn't topping the course or anything, but got through with all the rest of the course, mate, and off to School of Infantry from there. And that's what I found really challenging, actually, really challenging.
What was the challenging part about
it? The physical aspect, definitely. But this was in the 90s, mid-90s or so when, what do they call it? Hazing, I suppose, bastardisation, whatever you want to call it. It was a very deliberate toughening up method, and look, you need to with infantry. The gloves are off. The job is pretty bloody full on. What they want you to do if you need to do it. I need a lot of toughening up, right? So if you're doing the wrong thing, it wasn't unusual literally to get a punch in the face by your section commander. Like if you weren't taking a proper side picture or you were lagging behind on a section attack or whatever it is, you'd cop a kick to the back or a punch in the face to keep up. And, it wasn't only me just getting kicked and punched all the time. There was plenty of us. So you never want to be that guy, right? But it makes you learn very quickly the serious nature of the job that you're in.
Have the opposite effect for a lot of people?
It did. We had a lot that bailed out. We had a 30-odd, between 33 or so that came in. And straight off the bus, we were straight into our joggers going for a introduction run around the base, 7 or 8K, whatever it was, and that sort of set the tone for what we're into. And anytime we did anything wrong, we were just formed up in 3 ranks and off we'd go running until someone would pass out and puke. Imagine doing that nowadays, right? People would be going to jail for doing that. They just used to take us out to Engineers Bridge, mate, and I think it was called. We'd just run between these 2 pimples up the top between each 2, and some of them instructors would just stay down the bottom and yell at us to, turn around and run back down. But it formed a very solid core of people at that point, and we ended up sort of, even back from that, we were doing our weeks 8, 9 training, where it's the last sort of defensive, it's your main test you do out bush, and we weren't performing, people were falling asleep, whatever it was, and they just told us to pack up all our shit and get back on the road. We're going back to depot, company in. We're gonna retest this whole thing again. You're the first platoon in the School of Infantry to be completely back squatted. That was our claim to fame, mates. That set how good of a soldier I was from the start. Right? Nothing to be proud of, but yeah, we certainly got stuffed around a lot. But I just, the frustrating part I think was, well, we're the ones that are still standing, and you've thrown everything at us, and we're still here, and you're punishing us.
Yeah.
So I found that a bit shit. But anyway, we retested and marched out of there, and then the only place I didn't want to go was parachute, because I was terrified of fucking heights.
Yeah, it's funny that's what life happened after that.
That's exactly where I ended up, mate. I thought I'd just refuse to jump. I wouldn't have to, and I'd be able to at the time you could go to a different unit in Sydney, but then realised how challenging it was to start in an infantry battalion, with 7 or other of my mates. And in that time, it was a wild west, right? Like I said, I come from a pretty nice background. He was people from all different areas I hadn't heard of, all sort of 300-400 young blokes. And mate, they were throwing burning couches off the balcony if you walk past because you're a lead, or you wouldn't dare walk into the boozer because you'd get a punch in the face for being there and you hadn't earned the right, and all this sort of stuff. So it was a crazy time. So I figured, I'd rather do this at least with 6 or 7 of my mates than go to a different battalion by myself. Next thing you know, I'm fucking jumping out of a plane. Did it because the dude in front of me's doing it, and the guy behind me expected me to go. And like everyone, where you're like, I can't let anyone down here. I'm just sort of trapped, and out you went. And never liked it, mate. Fucking hated it. Hated it. And look, to be fair, there was never any of this airborne bullshit in the aircraft. I never saw it once. No one No one seemed to like any of it. And when you're in that aircraft and you look around at people, that deadpan face of everyone realises, you know what, I've just flown for 6 hours in darkness, and now they're going to kick me out into the darkness. I don't know where the fuck I am, what I'm doing. And yeah, you look around, there's no bullshit at that point. There was no hurrahs and backslapping.
No bravado.
No, there's no bravado at all, mate. But look, it was a way to get to the exercise, and that's just what we did.
You never actually used it on any deployments, did you?
No, we didn't, mate. We didn't. Our primarily role was there as a large scale point of entry. The doctrine was we would seize an airfield, drop onto it, seize an airfield or close to it, and march in, and then hold it for follow-on forces. You know, the ODF guys that 1 and 2 hour hour to fly in and fan out from there. And there was an operation in Fiji that spooled up another one of their coups. It was in the, I'm going to say 96 or 97, around there. And we got stood up for that, and we got right into the planning for it as to exactly sort of what was going to happen on HR when we dropped. And that was pretty crazy because that was the first time, like a peacetime army, and I thought, holy shit, we could be going to Fiji in 2 days to do what's on, what they're talking about. It's unbelievable. So from there, I thought, oh God, this could be serious. This job, this is just not running around in the bush playing guns anymore. But that all, went away, and it was just battalion life, mate. Doing jumping and going on exercise, much like people do now. And it all changed again though in 1999 when East Timor first kicked off with INIFED. So,
what was it? You said that you were not allowed in the boozer as a lead. What was it like when you finally got in there?
Well, once you've earned your beret, you're good to sort of get in there unsupervised or without anyone looking over you. So, look, it was a culture that was absolutely all about drinking as much as you can and testosterone, because it's a bloody infantry battalion.
Drink as much as you can. Do PT tomorrow.
Oh mate, you could easily drink half a carton, and you'd still be able to back it up and run 5Ks the next day. It'd bloody kill me now, but yeah, look, it was a different world once you were qualified. You'd earned your beret, and but you still sort of stayed within your platoons or sections and groups, right? But yeah, we just did that right up until the end. Well, 99 when it changed, when we got deployed, and that happened relatively quickly with Interfed, because the militias and the East Timor, the Indonesians and Indonesian-backed militias and et cetera, started just killing and murdering everyone in and around Dili. So,
do you find that there's not as much sort of community knowledge about the East Timor?
Yeah, not so much anymore because, geez, it's what are we up to? 29 years ago, it'll be, what's that, 99? So it's how's my maths there? It's going to be, oh God, you'll have to edit this out, 30th anniversary of it coming up in 2029. Does that make sense? I hope it does there. It has faded from time, and especially with a lot of other peacekeeping operations since, but also, our involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that's certainly overshadowed a lot of what Australians have done in peacekeeping, and probably quite rightly too, particularly our involvement in Afghanistan. But it was a very big deal at the time. It was our first major deployment since Vietnam, and our largest. Around 4,000 Australians went over. And it's there that they really saw just how inadequately prepared we were to deploy what is a large-scale force for Australia, particularly at the time, and to try and sustain it only, a couple hundred or 700 odd Ks from Darwin, yet a lot of logistical struggles there with it. But as far as we were concerned, mate, we would, infantry, we didn't parachute in. We all thought we might, particularly out on the border region, to try and cut off the militias, but they were very aware that we didn't want to get into a scrap with the Indonesians, which was highly likely at the time. We were well and truly outnumbered, sort of 10 to 1 odds it was. So it was all very softly, so far as, we got off the ships and moved into town at the same time that the TNI were getting loaded on the ships, getting out of there. So there wasn't a lot of opportunities for clashes. There were a few bullets, sort of pot shots and stuff fired in our direction from the TNI and from the militias were the TNI half the time. They were the local Indonesian militias, basically their reservists. They're the territorial army.
Yeah.
Nothing that was really a contact, you would say, or any means. It was just to give us a bit of a scare and watch what we did and fan out and go into your contract drills. And
so who was on the good side? Who was like
with the allies that went in? Where we had it was an international force, primarily of Australians, but we had dozens of different countries. Malaysians, I have to check that. The Thais came in. The Americans helped a lot with logistics and also with their presence. Moreover, to tell Indonesia that don't even think about it. Don't even think about escalating this because we will have to get involved if you go against it. And that was certainly the feeling on the ground. And I've just read John Howard's bloody memoir. And he talks about that in there, and he was obviously the PM at the time. So it's interesting hearing it from all that level. And it was very similar to what we saw on the ground. But yeah, look, there was Jordanians, there was the Japanese came in, Gurkhas were there, the Brits in a small part. It was truly an international force, a coalition.
But so who are the local forces that were on your side there?
Oh, the Falantal. Yeah, but we didn't. So the rule was no one was allowed to be armed. So regardless of whether you're Falantal or militia, we had to take their weapons from them, right? So that caused a lot of problems initially with the farmers and subsistence farms. So everyone's got weapons on them, knives and machetes, and we don't have that in our culture. So whenever we come across people with machetes, we were arresting them, zip tying them and backlogging them. And quite literally the first few missions, patrols we went on, we had 15, 20 people laying on their bellies, zip tied with machetes, and they're just like, who are these dickheads? So we had to
20 you saw.
Yeah, we had to adjust, right? Pretty bloody quick. But there was a lot going on there, mate. There really wasn't. And everyone talks about the World War II, but it was quite honestly pretty bloody hairy in those first few weeks on the ground, particularly what the Indonesians were doing, and then coming across of a lot of what they've done to people was pretty confronting. They'd done a lot to these. One of the pro independence guys, I can't remember his name now, but his whole family was just murdered and stuck in the well in their backyard, just down the road from the Artarak, which is a militia headquarters. And our other section had come across that, and we had to go down and help them. It was just unbelievably awful what people do to each other, mate. They'd hung them up on these hooks, big bloody meat hooks, and then just cut them up and stuck them in this well. And it just, it was hideous, mate. That really pissed us off, seeing that sort of stuff, because how can you just do that to people? So we didn't give them really any of the militia people that we captured any opportunity to explain themselves or carry on or cry and whinge. We just zip tied them up and put a hood over them so we didn't have to listen to them and backloaded them. We didn't really care. But yeah, there's a bit of that in there, and but just the destruction, everything was on fire, burnt down, and a few people were deceased here and there. But we spent a couple of weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I think, in Dili doing that. And then we fanned out into the hills to live and work with the locals. And that's where we ran into the Falantal, the freedom fighters there up at Bobanara, which was their headquarters.
Right.
So we kind of turned a bit of a blind eye to the fact that they had weapons, because they'd been fighting for 20 plus years, since 76, right, when the Indonesians invaded. They had used that area as their guerrilla war. And these dudes were ragtag and everything was beat up. But I mean, if they've been fighting and killing Indons in the hills of East Timor, who are we to start throwing our weight around, So I know the boss had a bit of a blind eye to that. But then their President Guzmão showed up after he'd been released from Indonesian prison. So we were witnessing the birth of a new country right there and then before us, and it was amazing to see. But then just continued in and around Timor for another 4 or 5 months, doing various patrolling in various spots and just providing a presence so that the militias wouldn't return.
I know it was your first hairy experience was it with the moped and the guy pulled a grenade out of his back?
Oh yeah, that was when we were in Timor. In Dili.
Dili, yeah.
We were just sitting there, me and another soldier was sitting there on the front gate, a shit kicking job, mate. We just opening the gate for these reporters going in and out, and Cosgrove would be in the courtyard occasionally doing live TV crosses back home. So we'd all try and get the shift on the gate when we're in the background for the camera because there's no internet, no nothing. No one back home knew we were in.
Hi, Mum.
Yeah, and it's kind of a chance to say, hey, that I'm going to be in the background. But, we're just sitting there one day, mate, and this moped came by. And the traffic had picked up and the population was starting to move around again, but one of them was in a camo jacket and all that, and was the typical be aware of these people. But they drove past, and I just said to the guy with me, they looked a bit sus, and he's like, oh, yeah, we'll see. And they came by a second time, and the guy at the back was pointing to stuff because we'd set up, sandbag pits on the building and stuff like that. And I said, look, if these blokes come by again, I'm gonna get out and stop them. I reckon they're dodge. And they came back a third time, so I just came out, jumped out on the road and did the sign to stop, and they slowly started getting off their bikes and trying to tell them to keep their hands up and this and that, what's in your pockets. And this one guy had put his hand in his bag, and I'm like, you fucking get your hand out of your bag. And my Tedham was shit. It was like 2 weeks or a week's worth of halt, hands up, stop, roll, shoot sort of stuff. And I couldn't pronounce it very well, so he had no idea what I was saying. But yeah, look, just like thought maybe he's going to stab me or something. I don't know. And so I stepped back and brought my weapon up, and he pulls out a fucking hand grenade. This massive, big, green, bulbous Russian type thing he'd had. Who knows how old it was? It looked pretty new, but I thought, holy shit, he's gonna do me in here with this. But what do you do, right? So I lifted my weapon up to his face, and had the safety off, and I was sort of spitting and screaming, hands up, roll, shoot. But he already had his hands up. He was as terrified as I was because I just figured that he was either just going to drop it and let it go off or what. But it sort of registered to me that he still had the pen in, and maybe he was trying to hand it over to me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He probably should have just kept his hands out of his bag and let us find it.
Just kept you the bag.
Yeah, but that was the first time, and look, so many things flashed through your mind at that point in the blink of a few seconds. It was amazing. The training that had clicked in there was, okay, you can shoot this guy. You're probably justified at this point, no problem. But now I'm going to hit these dudes on a moped behind him. Anyway. But all these things were going through my mind, and we just built this UXO sandbag pit because they'd started to find munitions around Dili and explosives, and if we'd find them, we'd put them in that pit. And I thought, maybe I can get it and throw it in there. Just all this weird shit that was going through my mind at the time. Anyway, fortunately, the pin was in. It's probably not the best story, but it was terrifying to the degree that it was probably the first moment I thought, I'm done. I'm done, and there's just no way out of this. But yeah, fortunately, I got the grenade off him, and we dragged him inside, and that's there was a photo of me because it was the Turismo we were staying at was full of reporters, so they all went nuts, right? Here's something actually happening, and they all came out and started taking these photos. And I got a really cool photo of me got this guy up against the tree trying to find what's happening, what else he's got on him, because his mate we pushed over pretty hard and made him. Well, he was in a position after that he wasn't going to provide any threat to us, but his mate we wanted to make sure was okay, because we actually started searching through his bags, and I was probably too full of adrenaline, and I started ripping everything out of their bags, and there was a cigarette lighter in there, and it hit the ground and exploded.
Oh, really?
So that as well, like, what, and yeah, it's just what's the chances, right? How often do cigarette lighters explode when they hit the ground? This one did that day too, and it just made everything a bit more crazy than it needed to be, you know. But yeah, that was a pretty surreal experience. But it was what we were trained to do, right? What we were supposed to do is go out there and stop these people and search them. And
did you ever hear back from anyone after he was questioned about what he was actually doing there for?
We did. We actually got a well done by the boss after we'd handed them over, and we got feedback through that they were in fact militia. So that was a bonus. But there was plenty of times there we'd come across militia and we would arrest them, and maybe one or two of them would get away. And there's a bit of that in the book as well. And you get in trouble for letting them go, and you're like, well, what am I going to do? Shoot someone running away? And you can't do that. And then we ended up with a bit of a shoot 'em up towards the end of our trip out on the border. When we were there, we showed up after one of our other sections got into a pretty substantial contact for that time. There wasn't a great deal of shooting going on, but they were using bloody 203 grenades and stuff like that. They really hooked in this other call sign to break contact with this mob. And the militias had come across from the border. They were coming across just to probe and create problems and seeing what we would do. And half the time they didn't even know that the Australian forces were there, so they ran into each other. We ended up going up in to support our other platoon. And when we got there, there was a whole bunch of Falantal dudes with tying wreaths around their elbows and knees and heads, and this is like a little war party of dudes with spears and stuff. And they saw us, so they're like, right, let's go. Aussies are here. We can go. And we're like, hey, where are these guys going? Oh, we better just follow what's going on. But that sort of fed off, and so off they go down this monstrous freaking hill. And so we sort of followed and then saw probably, 50 or 60 militia across the river, the border there. And Bakes, our secco, took half the section down. I was the 2IC, so it was my job to sort of sit there on the overwatch and with the binos and that. And he said he wanted to go down for a close look with these blokes at the border and just see what was happening. And, 20 or sort of 30, 20 minutes later, you could see these dudes with these reeds and spears just start charging across the river at these militia, and they had guns, right? We're like, what the fuck are these mad people doing? They're going to get shot in. One of the militia guys lifts up looked like an old 3.0. I mean, I was 450 metres away through a bino. It was hard to tell exactly what rifle he had, but our scout, one of our forward scouts that had gone down in the initial party, shot him. And he said it sort of just went straight through him and had this real stunned look and sat back. So, and after that point, the people we were watching in the field, they'd all lifted their rifles. So we had a couple of shots at them. More so, I was aiming at him like I was taught to do, but the reality was I wasn't very well trained with the old Steyr at 450 metres. Anyway, it was a 300 we could get a hit on a plate ride, but there was windy and I'm not a great shot anyway, but it was enough to see the fuller strike near him, and he'd sort of run away, then stop and turn around again. I'd try and give it to him again, and I'd miss again, and he'd get up and move off slowly. So I'm not sure whether I winged him or not, but he gave up the fight pretty quick and didn't want anything to do with it. And after that point, they sort of stayed there looking at us for a couple of days, and we just watched them. But we had all the Falantal people with us, so we were only a section strength, but we would have had 20 or 30 Falantal with us, and we were just one up on picket with 2 Falantal dudes, and we had all the MVGs and shit, but they could tell everything that was going on around us. There was no chance anyone was ever going to sneak up on us. So,
what are they like?
Really, mate, really good, because they know the lay of the land, mate, and we just lived and worked with them. I think the frustrating part was because you'd wake up in the morning or whatever it was, and instantly, as soon as you open your eyes, there's about 4 of them sitting there, and they're staring at you, closer than you and I are, because they've never seen a white dude, right, with all this shit on him, and they're sitting there and they're basically they're jocks in a crappy shirt, and they just dare at each the whole time. As soon as you moved, it'll whisper. And then you'd be lighting a cigarette and they're looking at you and you go, all right, here's one. And everything you had, you're like, oh, well, here's some food or whatever it is. But it was just, I don't know, I found that it was interesting. It was harmless. But after a month of it, you're like, oh, God damn it, just give me some space, bro. Everything around it. But
they speak any English?
No, not really. But it was their country, mate. They'd put up a lot of shit. So, and they were just curious. And they'd come down with a bit of beetle nut and try and give us some of that. And when we ran out of cigarettes, they'd go up and get all the old chop and bring it down, and we'd be into that like the roughest guts, But that was good, mate. We lived and worked with them, not showering for sort of 6 weeks and living in the bush, like proper, what I thought was proper infantry work at the time when I'd signed up to. So, look, it was good. And we finished that mission up, the Interfet mission, after about 5 or 6 months, came back. And after that...
what was your thoughts on the infantry after actually living in the dirt and having rats and fucking scorpions and whatever else crawling over you?
Well, that's what I knew, right? That's what I'd signed up to do. And the reality of the infantry, you need to do 2 things very well. One is to be able to run. And I know there's a lot of different training they do now with all the dudes are really big and muscly and solid, and that's great. But back in my day, it was all about you need to be able to run. If you could run, you could do, like, you were a good soldier, right? Don't worry about the rest, it'll all come. But for some reason it was about running. And look, the other thing for the infantry is, in particular, being able to put up with a shit situation, being able to be uncomfortable is really what it's about. So, sleeping in the dirt, ticks are all over you, or mice and stuff in some of the places we're at in Timor. It's all in the book. But, it's being comfortable with being uncomfortable was what it was about. Now I'd sook if I don't get my king size bed and some comfy pillows. But back then you were, that's what we were doing, and that's what we'd practiced a lot on exercise. But look, after that, I realised, I thought I'd sort of done everything I'd wanted to do as a grunt.
So how long were you in before you got that trip?
I got to the battalion in the late stages of 95, so that trip came in 99. So what's that?
About 4 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. And then I'd wanted to do mortars in the battalion. I'd previously done time in SIGs. And look, I enjoyed that. A lot of people rag out the handbags and I get all that, but I quite enjoyed it because it was, you get to know a lot about what was going on around the place instead of just sitting in a fucking hole all the time on exercise, wondering what's happening. You always knew when you were going home or what was going on. So I wanted to avoid doing that again, though, and I wanted to do a mortars course. And I went and did a mortars course, and the expectation was I was going to mortars, and at the last minute the bosses are like, oh, no, we want you to go down and run this particular section back in SIGs because you got experience. I'm like, I'm out. No, I can't do it again. I want something different. And you know what? We were also back on the fields doing guns go, rifles go, on the football fields, doing the basics. And I know that's necessary, particularly for the new blokes in the section. But I'm like, God, there's got to be more. And so I'd seen the bloody choppers fly over and the Black Hawks, and I'm like, oh, God, I want to do that. But I want to do it. I don't know how. I don't know what the job is, but I want to do that. And just started asking people a lot about what the job is, and looking into like ringing the helicopter squadrons and asking them, and getting time with the crew, and had to sit aboard and testing, and was successful, and went across and started doing training as a crewie. So from in a week's time, I was counting radio batteries in a shed, just wanting to choke myself out with boredom. and mate, within weeks, I was literally hanging out of a Huey, strapping around the countryside like I'd seen in all those NARM pictures, mate. And mates on the other side were just looking at each other going, oh, how fucking cool is this? Yeah, and getting paid more, no bullshit, no nothing. It was so good.
You were saying that fucking you converted to Pogue. I wouldn't really put that up there in the in the Pogue rolls.
Very proud Pogue at that point, because we're on pay group 8 to the old pay group scales. I'm not sure what they are now, but I was like, 4 or something as a grunt, getting paid nothing, getting paid almost double now to do less work and sit in a chopper. I'm like, what?
Fucking no-brainer.
How do people not know about this? Is someone going to tell me that this isn't real and I'm going to get kicked out of this hidden cameras? Because I just thought, why doesn't everyone do this? It's fucking great. But it was really hard training for the aspect you had to be able to take in a lot of information very quickly, analyze it, and be able to sort of talk and do constantly. And this is why I just don't shut up. And a lot of people really struggle with that. And so it was kind of like a 50% failure rate on the course, because people just can't keep up with the aircraft, we used to call it. And your ability to judge distances at a distance at night is difficult too. So you would never allow the aircraft to get within 10 feet of a tree when you're coming in down. And if you breach, that's a safety breach. And, that's another reason you can fail the course. So it was a lot of work, a lot of study. But definitely worth it.
Is there two different classes of Loadmaster? It's because your aircrew, is that also called Loadmaster? Or?
Yeah, so we were initially called Loadmasters when I changed over in early 2000s.
The loadies are now the Kiwis in control of all the stock and stuff, aren't they?
No, the Loadmasters are for RAF on their C-17s and C-130s. They're Loadmasters. The Army changed us to Aircrewman. It was. I'm not quite sure why they did a name change. And then they started to turn themselves inside out when we got women in the Corps.
Aircrew persons.
Yeah, and then it was, aircrew people. And we were just like, oh, fuck. And you know what? We had one of the really awesome women that came on, Rach. She's like, I don't give a shit about any of this. I'll call myself an aircrew and I don't care. It's the job. It's not who I am. But then they turn themselves inside out. And then I think they're back to Loadmasters now. I'm not sure. But yeah, your job is just to look after cargo and equipment in the back of the chopper and passengers. And, occasionally you get to fire the door guns. And that's the real clencher, mate. It's the sport of kings firing a machine gun from a helicopter. It never gets old. That's all I wanted to do. It was great fun. So... that's what the job was, mate. And we kicked off there doing training, and it was just a different environment to be in, because unlike the infantry world, you were doing your job every single day for real, without the door gunnery and all that stuff. But when you had to go flying on a navigation sortie or whatever it is, nothing was different to what you would need to do overseas. So you would have to prepare properly for the sortie, make sure you've got all your equipment, and then you're actually out in the aircraft flying around. Where in the world you are is somewhat irrelevant. It's the danger itself is the flying and the weather. So just a normal sortie, you could quickly have an engine malfunction or some sort of maintenance issue, or really poor weather. And whilst you're just at work doing a normal job, things can go really bad really quick. I saw.
Yeah. When you're in the air, it's fucking life or death.
Well, it can be. Yeah, you can't just pull over, right? And I distinctly remember on our course training as a crew, one of the instructors said that everyone in this room will be in an accident or will have a mate in an accident. I just thought that's not possible. There's only 30 or so aircraft. That's pretty shit standards, right? Pretty shit safety standards. But he was right, mate. One of my mates, Hoops, was in that crash at Amberley where no one should have lived. That aircraft was just a rolled up mess, that Black Hawk. And we had our bloody spud in later on in the Chinook too. And certainly looking around now recently in the news with the blokes in the MRH that crashed in Whitsundays, it's happening. It happens a lot for all various reasons, but it is quite a dangerous profession. So every time you take off, you have to have your head in the game that this is not an exercise. This isn't pretend. Like the real things can happen.
Playing for keeps.
Yeah.
Is that like an aircraft fucking universal sort of thing that they're all have problems like this, or is this a military grade?
Military grade.
Military grade mental health.
No, look, the more modern an aircraft is, the more things can go wrong with it, right? And the old Hueys, the Vietnam era aircraft, they've literally got cables that run from the cyclic and collective in the front down the back and provide a physical input to the engine and open throttles, right? The newer aircraft are all fly-by-wire, so you provide input here, it goes through a computer, and the computer sends electronic signal to do X, Y, Z. So the more complex something is, the more things are going to go wrong. And there is a certain amount of things that you're allowed to have wrong with a helicopter or Qantas, for that matter. You wouldn't know about it, but they're in the maintenance logs. There will be things that are unserviceable in the plane that they're allowed to still fly that plane. And at the end of the day, wherever it ends up landing, it will get fixed that night, hopefully. The big issues, engines, hydraulics, that sort of stuff are usually the things that stop you from flying, taking off altogether. And there'd be plenty of times we'd go to work, which was another cool thing about a lady, especially if you're night flying. You'd rock in at 3 o'clock and you'd get there, and by 4 o'clock they're like, oh, the aircraft's broken. Go home. So, like, okay, see ya. I'll see you tomorrow night. We'll try again. This has been tough. See yous. So it's awesome, mate. But the flip side to that is when you're away somewhere and you really want to get home and you break down, and you're like, how long are you breaking down for? Repair parts and spares, so it could be 2 weeks before you get a transmission. So you're stuck in bumfuck Idaho for 2 weeks, like literally flying between Perth and Townsville in the middle of nowhere at some shitty little airfield. What do you try and find a hotel or something there to live at? So I'm really getting over it how you can't plan for anything I found in that job. Birthdays, anything. And I missed a lot of events because we'd broken down or weather or whatever changed and we weren't able to get home. And now I know that my wife and particularly my family and like my civilian mum and dad, mum and my sisters, they hate it because they're like, oh, do you want to come up here and go here for Christmas or this? And I'm like, I'll let you know a week out prior because I plan late, plan once. You don't have to change things. So, yeah, learnt that bad habit there. But that was the frustrating part about it.
Your wife sounds like a saint.
She is, mate. She's put up with a lot of shit, I tell you. She's a serving member too, though, but she gets it, right? She gets all that. And I've certainly faced times when she's been away, so it's not a one-sided. But I do talk about that in the book a lot, about what our families go through. We're serving the nation, but without them, we would be ineffective. So they certainly do put up with a lot of shit at home. But look, I loved the role, mate, flying around, doing things. And I went back again to Timor in 02, 03, I think it was. Yeah,
got to see the old sights from above.
It was really cool, actually. All the places I'd humped up those hills and lived in the dirt, and now, thinking that took me a whole day to get from that point to that point. And I just flew over it in 15 seconds. It was great. And it was really cool. I kind of fed off the excitement of the people in the back because I'd been there, right? I'd seen how cool it was to sit in a doorway and operational combat loading we used to have with just a strap in front of you. And these dudes were like screaming and yahoo, and I'd take photos for them because I knew that they'd love it, right? And I really fed off that energy. But the pilot's like, oh, they fucking stink, these dudes, And I feel like, yeah, they've been living in the bush for 3 weeks, mate, and we have fresh showers and Cokes and all that every day, so cut them some slack. So we'd get into the Eskies and I'd be giving them, whatever we had in-flights-wise, chocky bars and Cokes, and we'd pick them up. So, yeah, but it was good to be then in that seat instead of getting out and doing the shit that they were doing. I was much happier in my seat, mate.
Was there a few grunts that had converted over, or was it?
Yeah, heaps actually, heaps, particularly in the post-infet period, because, we'd been doing grunt stuff for a lot of us longer. I had a dude on my course, Price, he was a sergeant in infantry, so he'd been in there for sort of 10, 15 years, been through a wonder and everything, and he didn't give a shit about losing rank and starting as a trooper again. He just, because he still got paid more than being a grunt sergeant. But no more humping up hills, no more bullshit. And it's a different team group dynamic, right? You're flying with 2 pilots, 2 officers, 2 crew. It's all sort of first name basis. It's all a very tight team dynamic, and you've got your job, do your job well, that's it. Still rank outside the aircraft and in the aircraft for that matter too, but it's a much more relaxed atmosphere as well, so you got to enjoy that too.
Yeah, I found that with the Navy. very much compared to the army. You have a lot of that. Everyone's got very specific roles and specialist roles and stuff, and it becomes, first name basis most of the time, unless you're talking to a senior officer or whatever.
Yeah.
And in the army, it's corporal this and sergeant that.
Yeah, so that was relaxed to a fair degree in the aviation space, just because of the small group team dynamics. In fact, there's actually a course I had to do called Crew Resource Management, and the underpinning take home of all that really is you need to be able to say no to officers. And so they train the enlisted soldiers how to say no when you're going into a shit situation, politely or forcefully, depending on what the situation called for. So that was weird that you got taught how to say no to officers from that point. So you still did it respectfully, but being in that aircraft, you needed to say no a lot to stop accidents or things from going wrong. So that was a different side of it as well.
Anything? What were you doing up there for the second trip when you're airborne?
Our main role was to move cargo and supplies and troops around. There wasn't a huge enemy picture by that point. There was still a bit of operation knee-jerk sort of stuff that had spool up through the infantry ops sort of side. Oh, there's 100 militia going to attack here. And I'm like, there's never been 100 militia. Like, why are we reinventing this? So we'd all spool up, go and drop troops off, and they'd all dive out and go and make trouble, but there was never anyone there. Realistically, we were there for people that have been injured, patrolling, a few broken bones, sickness. We'd fly them back to Dili and they'd get airvac back to Australia.
Was there ever any bigger contacts in the one that you were in? The other section was involved with?
Not to my knowledge. I think our special forces dudes, the SS that were patrolling in Innerfet, got into a fairly decent stoush. An ambush happened against them and they absolutely wiped the floor clean with them though. But
they're always finding trouble that lot.
Yeah, they seem to, right? They seem to, but we need them on our side to go and do that, right? They do a good job at it. Yeah. But no, not from the regular infantry side that I'm aware of. There was that contact in Mauritania, I think it was called, with two RAR soldiers that came up to a checkpoint. The Indonesians started shooting with them. So you can see that on footage online. One of the section commanders, I think, received a recognition, some sort of medallic recognition for it. Did an outstanding job in not just going up the guts and laying waste to everyone. They were all very well controlled. And certainly the platoon commander, I think it was, on the time, stopped everyone from shooting, calmed the situation down and actually walked across the bridge with his hands up to start dialogue, to stop killing from happening. We didn't have anyone injured, but I think the two of our guys knocked over 2 or 3 sort of TNI police and soldiers. I'm not sure, but that's all that I'm all aware of that happened over there, mate.
Yeah. So what then? You came back from that mission, and then when you're in Australia, you're still doing all the. You're still working pretty hard.
Yeah, you're still doing a lot of flying for currencies, and obviously you got new people coming through, and you move into instructor roles, and you have to train up the new crew, and new pilots get trained up. So there's always training missions going on, and depending on what it's for, if it's the new NVGs and the head-up displays they have, they've got to step through a syllabus where they have to do X amount of flights. So a lot of the time you're literally just ballast in the back of the aircraft. When you're flying around airfields, they don't need crew in the back, but we have minimum requirements for crewing and stuff that we have to fulfill. So when you're doing a pilot navigation sort of instrument flying, it's just the most boring shit you can possibly do. You're sitting at 10,000 feet, flying for 6 hours just up there, listening to different airfield markers coming in through your headset. You're like, oh God, please kill me. I just want to go home. Right. I could jump out now and it'd be all over. But look, you pinch yourself too, because you're like, hang on, I come to work here. I didn't get flogged up and down some hill. No one screamed at me. I don't have to go and clean weapons. I jumped in a chopper and I flew past a waterfall, called into Cairns for lunch, airport, got a pie, and then we strapped down the coast at 200 feet looking at backpackers laying on the beach, and then saw some whales on the way back, so did some circles and checked out the whales, came back, landed, kicked the tyres, put the chocks in and left. And that was my day. And I'm like, stop complaining. Like, fucking stop complaining, mate. Like, look where you've come from, pinch yourself, shut your mouth and enjoy it. So even the boring things that we got bored with, we're definitely worthwhile. But it was a cycle of constant training, mate. And the squadron we were in wasn't necessarily high readiness. It was the B squadron at the time with the Black Hawks was the green roll, flying troops and cargo in and around out bush. But we got reacted pretty quick to go to Pakistan. And it was something completely unexpected. Just showed up for work one day, winding down towards the end of the year, and they said, pack up all your shit, you're going to Kashmir. Like, I don't fucking know where Kashmir is. We all had to literally look it up on a map, right? And found out it's in Pakistan. It's that disputed area with India, and it's going to be cold. And, what our tents are like, our 11B11s and all that shit. We're made for a tropical army, and now we're going to a northern hemisphere winter and bloody right up high at sort of 10,000 feet. I'm like, fuck. But look, quickly we got spilled up for that, so we had to rush. Look, it's not just easy to prep an aircraft to get in a plane and do all that stuff. So the tradies did a great job, but we had to then rush around. It was one of those things, again, get all your wheels up to date, get all your pre-deployment checklist. There was thousands of pages of shit you had to tick and flick and go through the mandatory training of, malaria briefs and country briefs and all that sort of stuff. But, soon we found ourselves in Pakistan, which was a spin out because I'd never had anything to do with that part of the world, and especially the Muslim culture was, excuse me, was confronting. Like, you rock up and there's just a call to prayer coming across the whole city, and you're like, oh, bloody hell, where are we? Like, we're in such a different world. But look, they were really interesting, the Pakistani military that we were based with at Kazim there near Rawalpindi, a particularly shitty part of Islamabad. Like, that's where some real awful people are that hate us. But we were relatively safe inside the base. But the soldiers, they're not equipped or trained or educated even at our base line. So they're just the shit kickers, right? And everything over there is religion too. So they spend a lot of time with the English they could speak is, what religion are you? And you're like, does it matter?
What religion are you?
You're the dude with the gun. But as we were briefed, you've got to say you're Christian, because to not have a religion is worse than being a Christian, right? And look, none of us gave us any shit about it, but it was just odd that was always the first question they would ask. But they were genuinely curious of us, and we played cricket together and all that sort of stuff. And that was one of the real bonding things we did, particularly up in the mountains. So we'd fly out of basically Islamabad sort of every day, part of a coalition team with the Americans and the British, and we would fly right up into the Kashmir region. And operate basically out of some forward sort of operating bases up there, moving supplies and stuff around. But our role with the Black Hawks was primarily air ambulance stuff, evacuating, critically ill people or dead people back to field hospitals by and large. It was interesting until, because by this time, this was 2005-ish, I think it was. Like, it was a 7.9 magnitude earthquake. It killed 80,000 people. They really needed our help. But across the border, the Afghan war was still in full swing. So a lot of the Taliban were training in Pakistan, and we would fly over camps, and you'd be like, oh, look at that. That's dodge. So we'd mark it and we'd report it all, and you'd try and get a photo. But one of the American Chinooks copped a bullet through the blade, flying around. And we weren't allowed to have body armour, and we weren't allowed to have any armour at all on the aircraft. We weren't allowed to have any countermeasures, any chaff or flare, because it was a humanitarian mission, and we didn't want to posture in an aggressive manner. And I'm like, what? That is one of the most retarded decisions I've fucking heard.
Defensive's a bit different.
Are you serious? and especially after the bullet went through the Chinook, like, come on, surely now we need some protection. The Yanks don't fuck around. They had machine guns and shit on board. They had all their pistols and stuff in their helmet bags. They weren't stuffing around. They didn't have them on the doors or anything, they knew the threat they're there. So what we did at the end of the day was we painted a Australian flag on the engine cowl and the boxing kangaroo on the pilot's doors. And so they knew we were Aussies to stop giving us any shit. And what that did is then when we landed at refugee camps, the bond was cricket, right, between Australia and Pakistan, and we pulled out cricket sets. And then out of 30,000, they would pick their best cricket team, and some of these dudes were just monsters at it. They play cricket everywhere, and we were just these 8 or 9 dudes that had shown up in a chopper, and they were just destroying us in these fields, these dirt fields, mate. And it was good. It really helped form a relationship and build a bond there with the Pakistani people. And look, if flogging us at a game of cricket was what they got out of that day when they'd lost anything, mate, I was pretty happy with that, right? But geez, some of these balls, they would come in and they were howlers, and we couldn't play cricket for shit.
Bit of backyard cricket.
Yeah. But it was different, man. I mean, we were in right up there, and these mountains are just 13,000, 14,000 feet towering above us, and here we are in Kashmir playing cricket with these people. You're like, fuck, how did I get here? It was a really cool part of the job.
Pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. What with the I was thinking about it before, but it's a bit of a fucking somber segue. I was thinking before with the you're saying they were doing horrible things to each other. I remember part of the book where you were loading bodies and body parts. Was that in Timor?
No, that was in New Guinea. We went on by that time I was working in 171 Squadron, who is our special ops aviation unit that does work with TAG East and West. So on a very high readiness, and so because of that, there was a plane crash in New Guinea. This is a really back to front story. Now you can see how my writing goes. That had to be fixed. But there was a tourist going onto the Kokoda Trail in New Guinea, and they ploughed into a hill.
Later, yeah.
This was in 2010. So they wanted us to enact us to get over there quickly and search for this plane that was missing in Kokoda. And we knew, like, we go to New Guinea every year basically as an aviation element to train in high density altitude flying. So the heat in and around very high features, bad weather, it's great training for us to so we were pretty much the experts in flying around there, and being also a short readiness unit, we could be there within hours / overnight. And in preparation for that, they'd found the crash site the next morning, and they knew from the site there was no one that had lived. So we went over there to bring them home. And on the very first day, we almost became a casualty of exactly the people going in there for. We flew into really awful weather, and we couldn't get out of it, which is precisely what had happened to them. And we were just fortunate that we could see the ground, and we circled around real quick and landed at Kokoda there, and shut down and had to stay the night unexpectedly. But fortunately, we had the federal police with us, so they had the government credit card, so we didn't have to pull out sleeping bags from the back of the aircraft or anything. They just got us into the local backpackers hut there and went and bought some goat curry and heaps of beer, and we just stayed there that night on their bill. It was good of them. But they was actually some of the dudes that we had in Timor at the mass graves we went to, the same people. What's that, 2006, so 6 or 7 years later, these people are still doing this awful work. Some of the same people we escorted there, so that was an interesting night to swap and share stories. But yeah, the next day we got in there and got them out. They were in a real bad way, those people. It was quick. So that was a pretty awful experience. And I'm aware that there's families out there in Australia that have lost these loved ones. So I don't go into the specifics too much, because it was an awful event for them. But after that mission, I really spent a lot of time ruminating, just because of the state they were in and everything. But also, these people weren't soldiers. They were just civilians that had gone over there to sort of honour soldiers from the past, the Second World War, and now they were kind of forever part of the place too.
Story, yeah.
And you would see them, you'd see their faces on TV a lot, and then their family members crying. And for some reason, that I found that really affected me. That I spent a lot of time, researching who these people were, because I'd sort of seen to a degree of what had happened. And yet here's their families and everything crying. And for some reason, and it most certainly probably wasn't healthy that I spent a lot of time looking into that. But still one of the most rewarding deployments I've done, because, here we are able to get these people home, and it meant so much to their families that they had something to bury. So, yeah mate, that was a very short mission, stuck with me a lot for various reasons, but also really rewarding to have done, So, it was one that came out of the blue.
You still have any connections with those AFP guys?
No, not really, and I hope not to have at all. Some bad
you want to
shit
spit,
has happened, but they're just, these dudes, mate, God, it's all. I won't get into it, but what they have to do to prepare a body for return or to then go to labs, it's just bubble wrapping this and preparing that, and then taking the pressure out of this and that. And you're like, how do you do it?
What sort of guys are they? Are they dead inside or?
No, look, they weren't. And just like military people, lots of black humour. But you can't help but think after 10, 15 years of that, there's not a huge toll that's built within. Like the body keeps a score, particularly the brain. So, look, I could talk all day about how our police don't get looked after well enough. It's a terribly adversarial system when they leave the police, and the support is criminal what they don't get. I just hope that they're looked after service, because what they are doing is amazing. The Bali bombings, they went in there and literally were picking up pieces of people for days and days and days, And we saw them at Pasab, at the mass grave in Timor. We accompanied them, and, they would have to get all these bits of people together and bag them up and do all the forensics there. It's just... I don't know how they do it, mate. Special people, but I wouldn't say they were dead inside. Like that night, we were on the cans of them, and some funny stories, right? And very black humour. And they're not disrespecting anyone, but that's their way of coping. And so they would all be sort of outdoing each other with these awful stories of when they'd found old mate who's 10 weeks in a lake or something, and you'd be like, oh, dude, you guys are on a next level of just crazy here, right? But that's their normal, and they've got their own real tight-knit sort of mateship community there to get through that. So,
yeah, it'd be tough.
Yeah.
I've always had the same thing, that we, as veterans, get looked after so well.
We do, mate.
Anybody that whinges about it needs their fucking head tread. But we get everything. And we probably don't have half the fucking trauma that AMBOs and cops have.
I agree, mate, straight up. And I have always said it in any forum. Anyone will stick a microphone in front of my face. DVA don't get it right all the time. But I fucking put to you, go anywhere else. And even as a soldier in any other countries, you do not get half the shit that we get. DVA try to do everything for everybody that they can, and I see it because I'm now in the room with the highest levels of DVA for these meetings that we do, and there's shit people in every organisation, right? And I understand also there are some soldiers or sailors, aviators that have been given a pretty bloody rough end of the stick. So there's always going to be different experiences, but by and large, mate, what they do, providing the care that they do. Even travel to or from appointments, they'll give you money for. I mean, what is that? So this is the level of stuff that they will do, mate. So I always talk about how well, in particular, I have been treated, and I know a lot of people have been treated, and I honestly take that as a measurement of someone's honesty. When you strip away all the bullshit and the popular narrative of, I've got to lay the slipper in a DVA because that's the popular narrative in the veteran community. It's bullshit, mate. And when I hear someone say like what you said, I feel that you're a genuine person, because a lot of people will just go along with, DVA shit and DVA that. And if anyone's listening to this and you've had a shit job with DVA, don't come at me. Like I said, this is my opinion. This is from what I've seen. And if you are honestly objective and you look at what they do provide, honestly, look at what other people don't get before you throw rocks at DVA, because we are pretty lucky.
Yeah, 100%. And like you think about any civilian job, not even emergency services, there's some other horrific fucking jobs that you can do, and jobs that completely destroy your body and your psyche, and you can't do the job anymore. Fucking
see you later, bro. Yeah, we're working in the mines and things like that. And there's workers' compensation and things like that, but we get that as well as all those extras. Non-liability healthcare. Any cancers you get, DVA's gone, okay, we'll cover everything. A lot of people still don't know that. Well. All your surgeries, like it's amazing.
Yeah,
they don't have to do it.
They'll send a cab to your house to pick you up and drive you to surgery, and they'll drive you home.
Drive you home. So look, yeah, I could talk about that all day too. I have a lot of respect for the system. There are people in the system that are stuffing it up. I'm not going to say there are people that are deliberately stuffing it. I don't think any single DVA person gets out of bed to fuck over a veteran. I just won't accept that. No. I now, in the position I'm in with the Peacekeepers Association, see a lot of militant emails come through to DVA, dropping my name or whatever it is in there, and it really pisses me off. And I'm not going to stop a veteran from reaching out to DVA direct. Go for it, but they shouldn't be abusing people in those positions. You're never going to get anywhere like that. And I don't think that DVA are deliberately fucking over veterans, but let's see if people start giving me hate mail for that. It hasn't been my experience, mate. And if people are, I will honestly try and help them and support them with DVA, because I see a lot of great work being done there. And if they do want help, reach out and I will try and help you.
Yeah. Cool, man. So when you're doing all this stuff, when did you meet your wife?
Oh, high school sweethearts, mate.
Oh, really? Fuck.
Yeah. So she's the fucking reason that I ended up in the parachute unit, because she couldn't get a university course in Townsville. I was off to 2RR, and she said, "Oh, well, I can't go there now. James Cook University, or whatever it is up there, doesn't have the course, so I have to go to Sydney." I'm like, fuck. That's a parachute unit, right? You know, I fucking don't hate heights. I hated heights. And yeah, like I said at the start there, I just ended up doing it because everyone did it. But so we've been together through there, and she joined the Army as a psychologist in 2000, I think, went off and is a psychologist there. So yeah, look.
How'd she go with being home with the kids while she was serving? Was she?
Yeah, mate. And she was full time. She was the OC of a unit at the time when I deployed to Afghanistan. She worked full time with 2 kids. So that's the measurement of the woman she is. And there are so many great spouses, not just women. I mean, I've been at home myself, or she's been away looking after 3 kids. So there are so many good parents, spouses, whatever you want to call them out there, that are the backbone of those of us who deploy. I do some talks now out around RSLs and like it. Actually, one of the things I talk about is how actually easy it is when you're deployed. Yeah. There's no got to get the brakes fixed, got to take the dog to the vet, got to pick up little Johnny from school and take him to But some of the biggest decisions you have to face is fucking what am I going to eat tonight? Or got to make sure I get up and go to non-tech this vehicle, or and I'm not trying to make light of people being in combat, and there's some horrific things you have to face, right? But when you think about it, it's just your mission and your men is what you have to worry about. There's none of all the day-to-day shit that's back home, rent and bloody power bills and no.
I'm worrying about you.
Yeah. Worrying about you overseas and what you're doing. So there's a lot that goes on to the families back home, mate.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading that part of the book, actually. It doesn't get talked about as much as the military spouses probably don't get as much recognition as they should for what they do. You would know plenty of people that have been deployed.
You talk about, what's his name? Jared from Broken Fathers podcast.
Of course, yeah.
The lack of support, how quickly it brings you undone. You could be the highest end warfighter, and if you don't have the support back home, you are useless on the battlefield, right? So supporting our families, I think, is up there with supporting our men and women in the field with the equipment they need. Those families back home need as much support as they can too. That's one of the things that we're going to try and do with the Peacekeepers Association is this, the care packages we want to do up for our current deployed people. We're going to do a care package for the families back home. So, here's a 5 or 6 hour voucher for home care. Get your oven cleaned or your lawns mowed. Like only once, we can't afford a lot of it. But we recognise the fact that the families at home can be doing it tough. And if you can help them by just doing that for them, getting a little bit done, then that might help them not have to worry about this or that while their family members deployed. So a care package is not just for the dudes overseas, but also for whoever it is home, that they don't have to worry about this stupid, shitty job they've been putting off with, and get someone else to give them a hand. So
or paying the extra money for the lawns to be mowed all the time and all that sort of stuff.
That really would help them, and because they've got so much now that their spouse is away, and particularly when they got kids. I only deployed once with kids. Fortunately,
To Afghan.
Yeah, that was to Afghan later on when I had 2 sons by that point. Up until then, it had always been all sort of about me and selfish, deploy, it's good cash, good experience. It wasn't until I deployed to Afghan in 2010, wrong 12, that I really had to think about, you know what, this, because we're all volunteers, right? No one's forcing me to go. Everyone wants to do it to go to the big match, right? The big game you've been training for. But it really made me give pause to think, you don't need to do this. You've got kids here that rely on you. You're doing this for, yes, service and all that, but it's really you're doing it because you want to do it, right? I struggled with the reality of that. But look, fortunately, like I said, my wife is a serving member, mate, and she gets it. And she's been deployed to places she didn't need to go either, because she's driven, by that drive to serve as well, and do the job for real. So
it seems to be a pretty common theme that you have a few deployments and then you have the wife and kids, and then that sort of is almost like the last one. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, mate.
Can't do this anymore.
Well, at that point, I was done too. I'd had some pretty crazy experiences down in the Special Ops Squadron. It's very sort of high-end flying, demanding. Like I said, the notice to move is very demanding. You could quite literally go to work just as a normal day and get enacted to fly wherever to forward stage for whatever plan was on. But no comms. You can't ring your wife and say, "Hey, I'm not coming home tonight," because
oh really?
Yeah.
Just wouldn't turn up.
No, you had to rely on the system they had in place to notify your family that you were then deployed, and it never worked. It never worked. So people would have burner phones and stuff. So you'd be like, "Hey, can't tell you anything. You have to pick up the kids from daycare. See ya when I see ya," sort of stuff. It was just shit. I mean, it was only sort of high readiness exercise, and you'd come home after a couple of days. But if you're expected to pick up your kid from the daycare centre going home, your wife's
pick up the meat on the way home.
Your wife's in a meeting, she can't take a call, and all of a sudden she opens up a phone at the end of the day and it's blown up, and she's like, "Oh, for fuck's sake." And I say that the welfare system wasn't really effective because spouses would get missed. Okay, some people might have the wrong phone numbers down for their next of kin or whatever it is, so that person wouldn't get notified. No, mate, just doesn't show up, and that created a whole bunch of angst. So, look, I'd like to think that the welfare system has changed significantly since then to nail that down, but at the time it wasn't working. So yeah, you go to your mate with a burner phone and send out a quick text that, "Oh, we've been enacted, can't say anything, can't get home tonight, bye." But that would add up, right? That would add up pretty quick, and you only have to do that 2 or 3 times a year, and it wore thin real quick. Added to which the flying was pretty dynamic. Like, we were flying out to all different targets. You had to practice ships underway in the middle of nowhere and rope these dudes on to go and do their thing in case we were asked to do it. And bloody hairy stuff. Flying out just into the pitch black darkness out to sea, looking for a ship, and then luckily finding it and going in and doing the helicopter assaults on it. And fuck, you you're 10 feet off the blades from the superstructure, from those big masts, or from the bridge. You're looking out your window at the dude driving the ship, and you're like, if so that ship's moving with the waves, and you're moving in a helicopter, so the using hands here, but the pilot has to maintain a slight drift on the aircraft to go with the ship. I mean, they did an outstanding job. All while we're making sure the dudes that are going down the ropes to make trouble are safe and in the right spot. We're not actually accidentally drifting and sliding them off into the ocean. It's bloody full on, and these dudes have got every sort of weapon system and toy in the back, and at about a minute out, they're all sort of putting all their charges in and cocking their weapons and starting up their demo saws, and you're like, oh, my fucking God, this is... oh, please, everything go right, and you'd be sitting there, and there's like a lot of people jammed in the back, and there's fucking MP5s and stuff, and they're all just squished in, and they're pointing right at you there, and you're like, oh, I hope there's a safety on that. Like, it's just, but they were awesome dudes what they did. It was really cool working with them, but the tempo really was hard, and the stress of the profiles of the flights that you did would really take their toll, mate, because that unit at various stages has been in so many accidents. There has been so many special forces soldiers and crew, for that matter, killed in that unit. That is testament to the type of training that they do right on the edge of the envelope of safety. So I struggled with a lot of that, mate, and I was pretty open and honest with my thoughts of that. And that's not attacking the unit. They do a fantastic job. It was attacking some aspects of the culture at the time where it was mission first, safety second, and I had a big problem with that because it was an exercise. There was no, like, if it was for real and we'd rolled it up, that's part of the job, right? But let's not kill any more people for training, So that's why I had a bit of an issue down there doing that. But the training itself doesn't even have to be in the aircraft. Like when I did my Hewitt stuff, training for aviation, for the where they dunk you in the water, the helicopter underwater escape training, and you roll upside down. That was probably one of the worst training mishaps I've been in. I was doing that in Nowra, and I was cocky, right? I'd done the course 5 or 6 times, and I thought, oh, fucking, I'm all over this. I'll just get out this iteration, I'll be right. And I jammed my seatbelt, and couldn't get it undone, and I had to put my hands on my head, which meant give me assistance for the diver that was there, and so he tried to undo the seatbelt and couldn't either. By this time I was out of air. Old mate's leaning across me, trying to undo the emergency release from the floor, and now he's pushed against me. I'm out of air. I'm blacked out. I can't feel a lot. I've got a gas mask on as well. It's just an entirely awful experience. So I panic and I just push him away, and I'm trying to get this undone, and I can't, and I'm out of air. And there was a dude on oxygen behind me, the safety diver, who unclipped the emergency release from the floor. But I was thrashing about at this point. I was no reference point. I sort of floated around, thrashing around, and I just remember why aren't they getting me out? They're supposed to get me out if I'm doing this. I honestly just felt let down that they were supposed to protect me, and they didn't. And then greyed out, and then blacked out.
Was it because you were thrashing around? The safety protocol is to not.
I think so, mate. They made.
Down with the sinking
I think they just guess, because I was really panicking. Right, I figure at the time they just let me run my course until I slow down and stop, and then get me out. And that's basically what they did. But the next thing I knew, I'm hitting the side of the pool, and I'd lost consciousness. Hit the side of the pool, gasping for air. Got me out, and they'd put all the blood monitor, saturation monitor, and the oxygen on me, and they'd called the ambulance and that. And all I could do was just lay there and shake. I was an absolute passenger. And I remember that is the first time I had absolutely no ability to control my body from what my brain was doing. I was just shaking, and it was obviously an adrenaline dump, right? Because I'd come to, and I'm laying there on the side of the pool spitting up all this water and carrying on. And I'd made peace inside that trainer at the end when I stopped thrashing that I was going to drown. And that was the reality of what was happening, and there was nothing that I could do then accept it. And I did. I accepted it. And then now I was conscious, and I'm laying there shaking, and I couldn't take in what was going on because I had made peace with the fact I was fucked. And now I'm like, everyone's standing around looking at me, and I'm laying there and I'm shaking, and people are trying to put oxygen mask. I'm like, my brain could not comprehend what was happening around me, and that was difficult. So, I went down to the hospital and they checked it all out, and old mate said that you're pretty lucky actually, because it's a dry drowning, they call it. Wet drowning, and those final moments you gulp down water in an attempt to breathe, and fills your lungs and you're fucked. But I just essentially held my breath till I passed out and didn't gulp anything in. So I didn't feel real lucky about it, but it was luck, it was pretty lucky as it turns out. So, but that scarred me a lot psychologically. I could not get into a pool at all after that. So that, again, was another one of these times I'm like, holy shit, my brain is not doing what I need it to do. And I need to really think about going and seeing psych, because especially around that time in the 2000s, the psych was, don't go to psych, you lose your job, and you can't do that. Man up and fucking take it, and I was worried about losing my job. So I went through sort of outside the chain of command, because my wife was a psychologist. She knew people that might be able to help me, and so dodged it all up there so people at work wouldn't really know about it. And because I had to do the course to keep my job. You have to do it every 2 years. And look, that was the first time I actually went and saw a psychologist and sat down and just gave up the bullshit bravado. Said, look, I can't even fucking go into a pool. Like, I start shaking and shit. Like, is this normal? Like, what is that? And she's like, yeah, it's a really normal response to someone who's fucking drowned in a pool, dude. Like, yeah, no wonder you don't want to get into a pool. Last time it worked out real bad. And I'm like, well, that's a fair cop. So look, we did some exposure therapy stuff, it was called, and breathing exercises, and it actually worked. And it's the first time I remember thinking, this psych mumbo jumbo is real.
I've been married to one today.
I've been married to one, but mate, like every husband with their wife, the wife's rolling her eyes because you don't fucking listen half the time. So she's just like, oh, no shit. I could have told you that. But mate, it worked, and it got me in the pool. And I completed the course. I never fucking did it again. And I did the bare minimum amount of evolutions of it I had to, and I'm fucking out. I'm gone. And you know what? That training has been proven to save lives with the Black Hawk we crashed on the Canimbla in 2005.
You ever been on one coming down on a ship
Oh yeah.
You ever been on one that landed on the ship?
Oh yeah, plenty of times. And that's balls. It is awful.
At
night, in rain.
You see videos of it and it's like fucking ooh.
Yep. And you are so close to the ship with the blades. And so the ship's not going to matter too much if you touch it, but the aircraft will matter. So the blades will just fold off and you'll go into the drink. So, the Black Hawk that crashed on the back killed Marcus Case and Josh Porter. The Hewitt that those guys did, when they went into the drink, they went in real quick and it sunk almost immediately. In fact, it just kept sinking. And some of the boys didn't get out till, they were 30, 40 feet underwater, came up and hit the bottom of the ship and had to find, where they were going from there. So the training has proved to save lives. So it was really important to do. But I was glad I didn't have to do it again. But yeah, look, the first time doing psych stuff worked, and I thought I really should pay more attention to what's going on in my head, particularly after the rumination shit I had post Kokoda with those people that were killed. But like every fucking bloke ever, push it down and crack on because you want to keep deploying, right?
Just keep fucking jamming
Keep jamming that shit down there. And I really, because if you put your hand up, you are off tools, you are gone. So don't tell them what they want to hear on those psych debrief forms. Tell them what they want to hear and get the fuck out of that tent and crack on, right? And there's a lot of that to be said about what our special forces dudes did with their 5-6 deployments in a year sort of stuff, or over years. those boys would have just been jamming a whole lot of shit down to keep going back to chase that rush or to whatever it is they needed to keep going back for.
Yeah.
But it's part of
As
that.
soon as you go to the site, and no more weapons, no more driving.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. That's exactly what happened to me later on, mate. Fast forwarding, sort of towards the end of my career, that's what happened. Certainly post Afghan.
Yeah. So what about Afghan? So all this happened over a pretty long span. You're back home doing promotion courses and getting your hooks, and were you a sergeant by the time you went to Afghan?
Yeah, I changed over to the Chinook aircraft, big twin rotor blade beasts, because they were the C Squadron, the unit operating them had been involved in Afghanistan since the early in the years. I don't know the exact year. Sorry, lads. But yeah, that's kind of what the A game. That's where I wanted to go to get to. I was fortunate enough to get a position in there and deployed to Afghanistan as a sergeant aircrewman in 2012. And that was the American war machine is just unbelievable. And we weren't babied, is the way to say it, to a degree, like I thought we would be, because normally, Australian aviation assets, we only had 6 helicopters total, right? So I thought that we'd be just doing arse and trash and left out of everything to keep safe, because especially the year before they'd had a crash that we lost a Chinook with the death of Marcus Case. And quick shout out to the two crewies in the back, AJ, Harvey and Casper. They've just been awarded a, I hope I get this right, Distinguished Service Medal, I'm going to say it is. I hope that's right, or Distinguished Service Commendation for their work. When that aircraft crashed, Marcus Case was pinned under the aircraft, and they got him out and worked on him, keeping him alive, setting security, all that stuff in the middle of nowhere. It's not to say the pilots cowered. They were involved in a very serious accident, but these two crewies helped run that recovery and try and keep Marcus alive. So look, the story is that we'd lost a Chinook, so we were worried that we're going to be wrapped in cotton wool. We weren't. We were put in with the American Aviation Brigade as just an extra chopper for them to use. We had 2 in country, but we would do normally 1 chopper a day on mission. So we could do all and any tasking that the Yanks were doing, and some of it was, quite frankly, arse and trash delivery, like a school bus dropping off people at each fob. In fact, it got so monotonous at some points that I would have sticky notes on people's helmets, or I'd write on chalk where they're getting on and off, because they'd fall asleep, right? And we were literally on a bus route around Kandahar, flying around, and you'd see someone, with painkiller written on their helmet. You're like, dude, wake up, it's your stop. Get off. And it was like that, right? It was pretty surreal. And American soldiers and contractors and all dudes with no uniforms and cool guns, and they're just passengers, right? Get off, this is your stop. And some of them would miss it. Like, you'd be flying home and you'd still have 3 dudes on board. You're like, hey, where are you supposed to get off, mate? And I'm like, well, sorry, bro, you missed your stop, dude. You're coming back to Kandahar with us. So you do missions like that. You would also do, a lot of carrying cargo around, because the Chinooks are an unbelievable beast to load up, and undersling stuff underneath too. So you'd be doing a fair bit of that around.
They carry fucking 777s and stuff in there.
Yeah. Huge lift capability. But we would we'd also work with some special forces occasionally and do all that, and that was the really cool stuff. You'd do deliberate actions with them, and not our special forces, I don't recall, but the British we did with the Afghan special forces too. Towards the end there, we were doing vehicle interdiction stuff. We'd fly around the desert, and the sensors the Yanks had would get a hit on a vehicle that might be carrying drugs or weapons, so the sniper birds would come in and stop the car, and we'd swoop down next to it, chock-a-block full of SF dudes, and they'd all rush out and make trouble. It was really cool. I got some really good helmet cam footage of it, and no one wants to give up quicker when you land a Chinook about 30 metres outside their car window with a minigun pointed straight in it, right? So it's at that point they have to really consider their fight, flight or freeze response. And a lot of dudes just throw their hands in the air and want no part of it, especially when these special forces dudes are out the back with dogs, right? They fucking hated dogs. So you could get really dynamic and pretty interesting. And some of the places we'd drop people into, we'd pick them up, and some of them, the Afghanis especially, were full of holes getting on board. But yeah, all various missions over there, from arson, trash, mail deliveries to whatever it might be. It was a good deployment because you also get to see so much, whereas a lot of the blokes that would go to FOBs would be doing a lot of dangerous work patrolling in a valley, but they would only get to see that one valley. We got to see, really the whole battle space, which is really cool to take in.
Yeah.
Could be dangerous, obviously. It's really hard to hear anyone shooting at you in a Chinook.
Oh, yeah.
It's really hard, unless it's really, really close. And I mean really close. You hear that crack come by the window or whatever it is, and there was only 2 or 3 times you would hear that. And if you're going into what we called a red fob, like a really dangerous place, we would have gunship support. We'd have an Apache and a Kiowa Warrior, those dudes who shoot their M4s out the doors and stuff, like these pilots, and with fucking cannons and rockets on them. They're literally cowboys. They wore cowboy hats. But, they'd go in and pathfind before it like 20 feet off the ground. And we're on approach to drop off our dudes or whatever it is, and then you've got the Apache over the top, like Big Brother, with all these sensors. So you kind of felt pretty safe when you were doing it, because you had, your little aggressive boxer there, and you had your Big Brother up top with all the big guns. So you felt safe, but we never got any hits on our aircraft. A couple of zips past every now and then, but nothing too scary.
Mm.
Well, the exception for flying around and spudding one in, but yeah, that was before all that. It was pretty vanilla. Yeah.
That was the one that went from 3 months to fucking whenever we finished.
Thanks, Army. Yeah, so no Rockwell, no nothing. You're only going for 3 months. And then they went, it might get extended to 4, and then it was 5. And we're like, what about Rockwell? And they're like, shut your mouth. Fine. 7 months. Yeah, 7 months we were there for. And look, mate, as aircrew, we were pretty fucking comfortable. Mutinies were starting. We ran out of fresh milk. Like that's the problems that we were facing. Okay, so, but yeah, it did blow out to 7 months, which is a strain on your family, and like everything, mate. You could have a great tight knit team, but the guys, those little things. You slam the door in the morning when you're leaving, or, you make noise when you come into the donga, and tensions will flare. And so, but I was with a good bunch of pilots and crew there. So I guess I was lucky, but it did take its time with that 7 months. And when we had our Chinook crash there, that was really halfway into it. So what happened after that is we were down to 1 aircraft. So that meant there was a lot of more downtime, and you don't want to be downtime in a FOB with people there that never go outside the wire, because they have to justify their job, right? And I'm not going to say it's a particular rank or person, but we all tend to know who they are, the FOBites who are there on their deployment, and they don't ever leave the wire, but they want to make sure that the pathways are swept, or want to chip someone because he doesn't have his hat on after he's been out flying for a 10-hour mission, and you're stuffed and you're soaked through, and he sees you, like, where's your hat? You should be wearing hats. And you're like, oh, fuck, it's stuffed down the bottom of my kit bag. Because anyway, yeah. So that was a challenging aspect of it too, right? But yeah, it was a decent trip.
And the chopper crash in the middle, that was obviously it's in your book, but speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, that was another one of those times, like old mate said at the start of my career, where everyone will be involved in a crash, and it was one of those things I saw pretty quick. Like, things can go in an aviation sense, in a helicopter, things can go from normal to not normal really quickly. You need master caution comes on up front, engine fire on number one. You're now looking for a place to land immediately before the number two goes, or whatever it is. So very quickly, you're fat, dumb, and happy into potentially life-threatening situation. There was a number of those times in my book I've written about of things that have happened like that, and we've gotten away with it with the skin of our teeth. This, well, to a degree, we still got away with this one, but we'd had some problems with one of the helicopters over there for months. And again, like I was saying, you could have all these carried forward unserviceabilities they are with things that you know are a problem, but are not enough of a problem to ground the aircraft. So we've been putting up with this aircraft, playing up, doing some funny stuff. And that's what we thought was happening again this day. So they were doing a lot of playing around with the systems, trying to get things to work. And anyway, we took off from one fob that was it was a really dangerous area to land that only just been mortared prior to us coming in, and choppers on the ground means you're going to get another salvo real quick. So we didn't want to hang around there because we should have technically shut down and then called our maintenance team in to have a real good go over it. But we thought, no, fuck it. We're only going to get rounds coming in here. I mean, they didn't even have guard towers. They had the remote weapon systems on the walls with cameras. So no, it's a fucking dangerous spot, right? No one wanted to stick their head above the walls, let alone stay there. We're like, we need to get the fuck out of here. We're aircrew, we're too soft. So look, we went for the next fob, which was a big one. And on the way there, mate, the aircraft became less responsive with the tests they were trying to run on to identify exactly what it was. And they were, they'd select something off to see if that was the issue, then it turned something back on. Anyway, on sort of late finals, there was a big bloody jolt through the aircraft. Excuse me. There was a big jolt through the aircraft, which is not normal in any way, something mechanical. I kind of felt like we'd hit a big bird, and that's not uncommon. You'll feel it through the whole aircraft when you hit birds. And then at that point, they had a lot of problems with vibration. We were vibrating really badly and then starting to wobble in the sky. And the pilot turned the tail to the right to line us up with our landing area, and then we sort of tipped a bit and they corrected it to wings level. But at that point, I knew that we were in a real, like something was really bad, right? And I grabbed the dude next to me. We had a boatload of Americans. And I just grabbed him and I said, mate, fucking brace. We're gonna crash. And at that point, we just came straight down, hit the ground, sort of hit it with a force and a bit of drift that we ripped off the right side landing gear, and the struts from the landing gear punched out through the side of the aircraft, and that. Then we were lower on the right-hand side, so the blades hit the ground, and we lost, I think, about a metre off the front blades. That was a pretty violent experience because those blades are going so quick, and they're like a metre wide, right? And watching those hit just outside my window with all the rocks, I'm like trying to shelter my face with shit going everywhere. With the forces of that, we tore down the side of the aircraft on the left hand side, and the fuel lines down the back split and started spraying fuel down on the ramp. I knew that was we needed to get out pretty quick. It was a shit situation. I looked outside my window because I was on the right, so a lot was happening at my door. I saw that the fuel probes on the right-hand side of the aircraft where you get all your hot refueling done, and that had punched out through the skin and was hosing down the side of the aircraft in fuel, like huge spurts of fuel coming out. And I'm like everything's supposed to be self-sealing. This is not supposed to happen, and we're getting hosed down with fuel. And that's when I was really terrified. Like, 'cause I just pictured fireballs and bad stuff right now. Look, the reality of aviation fuel is if it's not atomized, or if it's not, if it's not in, if it's not atomized, it won't really catch fire. You can put a cigarette out in it, right? In a bucket. I wouldn't do it, but you can. The flash point is so high. However, when it's hosing all over something that's very hot, and the aircraft the year before tipped on its side and it caught fire with the heat from the engines with the fuel, so it went up pretty quick. And was terrified that was going to happen. That was another one of those bloody fight, flight or freeze. And look, initially I guess I froze because it was all happening outside my window, watching the destruction of the blades, the sounds of the aircraft dying, all the different alarms that were going off at once. It was a lot to take in. I grabbed the dude next to me and I'm like, you've got to get the fuck out now. There's going to be a fire. And I grabbed him and I'm trying to like jam him out my window, but the minigun's in the way. So there's no way this poor dude was getting out. But I'm pushing frantically, like, get the fuck out. Like, oh, get out. And I've got the dude next to me, like, come on, get out. You. And luckily, Cam, the left gunner, he had a lot more situational understanding because he hadn't, like, he was on the left and he was sort of tilted over, looking at the sky. And not a lot of crazy was happening out his window. So he still had that situational awareness to say, no, fuck, stop, dude. You're going to push him out into the blades. And I'm like, bullshit, mate. Blades are gone. We've got to get everyone out of here. We're going to catch on fire. There's fuel. And he's like, no, look. And I looked outside and the blades were still just sort of winding down. So, fortunately, if I hadn't have, like if Cam hadn't been there, I might have pushed these dudes out into the blades. So he did a fantastic job. Anyway, look, I reefed that first dude back and then grabbed that smaller dude next to him and tried to get him out, and it still wasn't working. So we, the cabin was pretty crowded with shit that had gone everywhere, and the fuel was sort of spraying down at the back. It wasn't the best place to go, but Cam pretty much grabbed them and took the passengers we had next to us out egress through the back. I was looking for a fire extinguisher at that point. And I grabbed my weapon. And a fire extinguisher. That was the grunt in me. I wasn't going nowhere without my weapon. So grabbed those two, went out through the cockpit because it was the closest way. And there's the doors on the Chinook, you can jettison them. You can't open, you just jettison them. And it was another one of these things like, I'm not usually in the cockpit. And when you are, you're very careful not to damage anything. And here it is, munted, shit's everywhere. I step on the control panel. I stepped on the computer and damaged it and everything just to get out. I'm like, fuck it. And out this door and free and clear. And our aircraft captain was there. He was doing a head count of all his crew and he just gave me this big bloody hug. And he's a pretty blokey dude. He gave me this big bloody hug and you could just tell that he was just, what an intense experience. But he was relieved that all his crew were all right. And our passengers were too. I think there was a broken ankle by one of the crew by one of the passengers. And
did you just like run fucking 20 metres away or something?
Yeah.
The blast radius? We
had to go to, I think the 6 o'clock it was, up near the blast wall. And we just sort of sat down there and watched. And then it was obviously clear that nothing was going to catch on fire and happen. Then we all just sort of stood around, looked at it and looked at what was munted. And then, 15 minutes later, the on-base fire truck, this is how big the base was, rocks up with all its foam cannons and stuff and didn't need it. It just stood standby. But
what was the vibe like after that?
Oh, well, as you'd expect, right? Everyone was kind of like, holy shit, that just happened. It just happened. And look, especially when the fireys were there, right? I'm like, dude, I forgot my smokes. I'm going back to get my smokes. He's like, you're not allowed in the aircraft, mate. It's an investigation. I'd go fuck yourself. So climbed back in and got my smokes and got my helmet back and got all the stuff we needed, grabbed some food out of the esky and grabbed some other people's stuff. Like we weren't, like it was safe at that point. But yeah, look, we sat back and just thought, holy shit, that was a close call, especially for Reedy on the ramp. He could have ended up crushed really easily, like what had happened to Marcus Case under that ramp. He got a few cuts and scratches. They took him to the on-base hospital and fixed it. But yeah, mate, the Americans, it was their first ride in a helicopter in country.
Oh, was it?
Like, this is our first ride and 100% Australians have crashed us. I'm like, it's not our regular statistic, mate. We do a few chopper flights where we don't crash. So, but yes, I understand. It is 100% of the Australian experience and we've crashed. But look, that aircraft was written off at that point, never flew again. They had to pull it all apart and I think, it's still quite a heavy landing. At this point, the investigation was launched. They found it a part. Oh, God, don't sue me, Boeing. Don't sue me on this one if I get it wrong, but there was a part in the aft rotor head that hadn't been greased sort of 25 years ago properly in the factory. And at that point, at that date and time, it decided to fail. And then that wedged that rear rotor head into a position that was not sustainable for flight. And we were very lucky it happened when it did, because there has been cases of that happening before on an aircraft. And the blades intermesh, right? They're synchronized so they go through each other with no problems.
Yeah, right.
And if there's an issue with that, then they just thrash themselves apart, and then you just fall apart in the sky. So look, we're very, very lucky. Like everything, there's so much luck that goes into things. A lot of you don't realise, but we were very lucky that day.
You mentioned the Eskies before, which fucking, you got to the end of the book and mentioned it, and when I read that, I was like, oh, thank fuck he's talking about this. I was thinking about that the whole time. I was like, how the fuck do you not have a seat? What the fuck sort of job is this where you're sitting on Eskies?
So that then became my mission to fix, and I died on a hill over that. So for people who may not be aware, that when we bought the American Chinooks, it came with the Americans have a bulkhead seat that sits there. It's a very basic seat, and it's what their crewmen have used forever. Australians, we said that doesn't meet the Australian standards of safety.
So get a safer seat.
So they took the seat out because it's, you can't have it in there. It's illegal. Like, cool, what are you putting in there? Oh, we're working on a solution. Okay, so the solution was an esky that just sits on the floor and you sit on the esky. and mate, I'm happy. Anyone can ring me and fight me over this or get into me, because this is what happened. And it was just so unbelievable that they took out a seat because it didn't meet the crash-worthy requirements of Australian standards and put in a fucking esky. Practically, great thing to have, mate. Kept all my Cokes cold and chocky bars. And it had a little padding on top, but you're completely unrestrained. And so, again, when you're at war, there are certain risks that you accept. And one of those was this. And that's fine. I accept that over there. But I would not accept us doing it anymore at home. Because why? Like if you were to drive around an army base in a Land Rover doing 300 Ks an hour with no seat and no seatbelt, you'd be fucking arrested, right? The MPs would finally have something to do more than booking you for 1K over, right? But here we were in a chopper flying around at 300 kilometres an hour, 50 feet off the trees at night with no crash restraint for our crew. And that really annoyed me, particularly when I would go to the chain of command and I'd say, I think we need to look at a better solution to this. This is what I suggest we start looking at as a tangible way to fix this in the interim. Let's put the old seats back in. Right, yep, they don't meet the Australian standards, but they do have crash-worthy properties and the Yanks are using them. Let's use those. No. I'm like, what do you fucking mean no? Like, the only answer here could obviously be yes. We just literally take them out of the shipping container and we reinstall them. Nope. This was what I was up against for sort of 18 months. And I met so many layers of obstructionists, of people saying no all the time without giving any clear response as to why, other than the risk has been accepted by the Airworthiness Board. I'm like, well, fuck the Airworthiness Board, because they're not sitting in this seat. I am, and my mates are. And we've now crashed 2 of these things. In fact, we crashed 3 of them. We've crashed Aircraft 101 and Perseverance Dam, killing the crewman. Crashed 102 in Afghanistan and crashed 103 in Afghanistan. No one wanted to fly in 104. It was fucking cursed. We're crashing our choppers in numerical order, right? But it was a problem, and it was a very serious problem that needed to be fixed, and no one was willing to stop it. And they're like, well, what would you do, Mr. Smarty Pants? And I'm like, well, if anyone showed some fucking leadership and some balls, I would ground the aircraft today. Ground the aircraft, and that will force command that have to provide this capability to find a workable solution, and it will happen very quickly if you do this. Of course, no one was prepared to take ownership of this action, show true leadership and command, and make that call. If you rock the boat and you are a major or an OC, or a CO or a brigade commander or whatever that is, you're not going to the next job, right? You just aren't. And so I understand why people weren't prepared to make a call like that. But I saw that as being let down by my chain of command, that they truly would not do what was necessary to protect those under their command. And that is what I would call as a moral injury that just really pissed me off. And I even got the defence minister once on this seat and I said, hey, well, I've got you. And you can see that the CO at the time, he's like, oh, fuck, Hendo's got a hold of this dude. He's got him on the seat. And I'm like, this is bullshit. This is something we need fixing with Sir, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, you're not serious. And I'm like, I am deadly serious. This is what we've got. I've written these submissions. I'm not getting nowhere. Can I get your help? Before I was, Hendo, come over here and help non-tech this, get away. Got his direct email, spoke with him in person about it, but then he got moved on out of Parliament for whatever reason, whole thing back to square one, and after that point I just gave up. And then because I was making such a ruckus about it, what they did is they took the seats out. They just fucking took the eskies out. Like, no more eskies. Can't whinge about it anymore.
Fuck you, sit on in.
You just had to kneel on the floor.
Wow.
I've got photos, man, of us kneeling on the floor.
For 6 hours? What the fuck?
So you had to kneel on the floor, or you had to occupy a cabin seat position, you know, the red seats down the side, backs of the Chinooks. So then we weren't allowed to take 3 passengers now because the crew had to occupy one of those seats. Those seats aren't crashworthy in Australian standards either. So you can see like how I'm losing my shit here, right? So yeah, that really came to a head, and that fucking broke me, mate, because I just couldn't understand why no one would help us. And look, I did have some officers there, and I'll leave their names out of it, that fed me a lot of inside information of what was happening with paperwork, and I've got copies of all of it. That went through the op airworthiness boards and people at various levels who just went, no, we're not fixing this because we are working on this grand solution and it should have come in by now. It's not, there are delays, but I'm like, you know what? Every single time this chopper takes off, something could happen. So a 2-week delay, a 2-year delay like you're talking about, fix the problem now. Just put the old seats back in. No. Look, eventually, about a year or so later, they put the old seats back in. I had a meeting with a pretty senior officer in Canberra, which I thought was odd as a sergeant. He just come and spoke to me at a cafe. It was all very, very sort of clandestine, weird. And he's like, well, what would you do? I'm like, fuck, sir, put the old seats back in. Just buys us time, right? A few weeks later, the boys sent me a photo of the seat back in. And I never got a ticker tape parade, and I didn't need it, but it was fucking cool that finally the squeaky wheel got the grease only sort of 18 months later. It fucked all PARs, everything for me, insubordination, the whole lot, because I just could not accept them saying no constantly. I was probably a shit soldier too, but I'll claim it. It's because I was rambling on about the seats that they shit can me. But yeah, mate, that took a lot out of me, and that fucking broke me. Their inability to look after their soldiers with that. Fast forward years later, working at the War Memorial, I got onto the Chinook project to help out as an advisor, and they got the Eskies in the War Memorial. Everyone thinks that it's my influence because I was the big voice about it, but it wasn't. They had seen the significance of how ridiculous it was that we were flying into war on Eskies, that they'd already got this in as a key piece of history. But it's cool. It's going to have its own display case at the War Memorial, the Esky, the combat Esky. Yeah.
Right, it was, reading that. It was fucking diabolical, the whole thing.
We also had the combat toolkit. We got a cushion, and you'd strap down the toolkit and sit on that on the left-hand gunner's window. That was not as comfortable. It was just, it really was unnecessary. And it finished my time in aviation in a really unsavoury, with an unsavoury taste in my mouth, because by the end of sort of 2013, I was in my office and I had so I was going through all this constantly, fighting this system constantly, as well as still having to administer my blokes, go flying, do all the stuff. And I had a real tight chest one day, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty odd. I'd done some PT. I was a peg, so I wasn't running bloody 50 Ks or anything. So I thought maybe you're just a fat dude and you're out of shape. But my wife rang and I said, I just had this weird tight chest thing going on and it hasn't really gone away. And she's like, get to the fucking RAP, you idiot. You could be having a heart attack. And I'm like, I'm 6 or 7 at the time, whatever it was. I can't be having a heart attack. So I go down the RAP. And, of course, when you go to the RAP and you're like, oh, I've got heart problems, like you get straight in, right? Everyone clears and fuck off you go. They lay on the table and they stuck all the stuff on me and did all the tests and there's nothing wrong, like high blood pressure. And I thought, oh, God, don't I look like a fucking idiot? I knew I shouldn't have come here. And now I look like a fucking linger. Everyone's going to. But the doc's like, mate, what's going on in your life? I'm like, well, I don't know, nothing. Nothing's going on. What are you talking about? And he's like, well, what's happening at work? And I'm like, well, you know what? I just sort of got back from Afghanistan. It was an extra long deployment. Had a lot happen over there, particularly with a helicopter landing. I've been battling a system about safety requirements and getting nowhere. It's Christmas time. We're about to move our whole family to Sydney. Starting to think, holy shit, there's a lot, right? There's a lot going on in my head, and maybe that's what it is. And he's like, dude, you are carrying a lot of shit. You need to go and unleash some of this, right? And so they said, oh, go and see a psychologist. And I thought, oh, fuck, here we go again. You only go to psychologists if there's something really wrong with you or you're a war fighter, you really need help. And so, look, I went outside defence and went through the DVA system and I got a psych and it just didn't work. Like you'd spend your whole time there and they're like, oh, what's a chopper? You're like, fuck. And so you're starting at a level to break through any real issues to speak about. 3 or 4 sessions later and you're like, I'm fucking getting nowhere here, dude. So see ya. So I carried all that again down to my next posting at the Royal Military College. And I was not a good instructor. There's a generation gap, right? By then, these people were young enough to be sort of kids, my kids. But also, from my experiences, I think particularly at Singleton, had shaped me to a point where you need to, you need to yell, not yell and scream. I was never a yell and screamer, but you really need to hold people to account. And I wasn't bashing people or anything, but they need to know that who's in charge and these are the reasons why you're doing this training, because in a few months' time you could be leading a platoon in Afghanistan. That was my mindset of how they should be trained. It was completely different to the way the training management side of it said that they should be trained. Again, it was probably more on me to have that understanding of this is the way they should be doing it. What made it worse is then I went then as the troop sergeant to look after the rehab platoon. We had about 30 or 40 people in there. And they were some of those, mate, were real lingers. And I mean first-rate card-carrying lingers. We had a dude in there that had been in there for 2 years in the rehab platoon. The whole fucking course is 18 months to do RMC, bro. Just go and do the course, you could be out. So many had been in there for a year. But they were doing it because they obviously couldn't cut it at the training. And there were some of them that were dwelling on these injuries to keep this paycheck until they could step out and go and do something else. So they were living for free and they didn't have to do anything, mate. I got there and it's like, I don't know, a bit like, what was it? Heartbreak Ridge. And I'm not saying on Gunny Highway here, if people have seen that movie, but he gets there and he's got this rehab platoon full of people who just sitting down drinking all day, playing PlayStation, doing nothing. And I just walked in there and saw that and lost my shit. I'm like, from now on, you will get up and you will put your uniforms on. You will do first parade like everyone else on the hill here in the classes are, and you will be a soldier, a trainee officer. You will go and you will do classes. You're not sitting around all day. Oh, but we're injured. We've got this and that. all right, well, fuck, whatever it is, I'll find a way for you to provide input somewhere. If you can't walk, I will drive you. If you can't hold a pen, then I'll let you use a computer. Whatever it is, no is not an answer here. That caused a lot of friction with this new guy rocking up, expecting these people to do something for their money. And it was just simple things like, defence instructions. You're going to be a platoon commander. Joe Bloggs has just gone DUI. What do you do? Let's look this up. I'll show you where you can find this information because that's not in the syllabus. I'll show you where you can find this information. That might help you later on, stuff like that. So I felt there was a very practical aspect to it, plus a lot of debating because particularly officers have to be able to put their case forward and be able to debate each other and have a bit of a clash of ideals, right? So things like that. So much interference was run there until that generational change was, it was different. Like, at Kapuka you get pictures of your locker and you have to have, 3 pairs of socks in there and they have to face a certain way. And there's a reason they do that, not because they like socks, but because it shows attention to detail. You can follow you can follow a command, etc., etc. And so they're like, okay, we put the things in their lockers, which they have in the classes, but these people, like I said, were sitting there doing nothing, playing PlayStation all day. So I did what they did in the class and put it in there and said, okay, you got a 2-week grace period to get all the shit you need. Just go grab the stuff, put it in your locker and present it like you have to do when you're back in training. Oh, fucking God. No. You go in for inspections. Old mate's got no socks. The dude next to him's got 8 pairs. And you're like, it says here, you need 3 socks, mate. You've got none. He's got 8. Do you two not talk? Like, this is what I'm trying to get through to you, is that you need to work together here. I don't give a shit about socks. It is you working together. And if you're lagging behind in one area, you need to help because this is what you need to do. But they just never got that. They never got it. And that broke me. It's just, fuck. And then I really struggled with the way we train our people. And so, I just became intolerant to their issues because, you do it. But, and I don't get off and walking around doing bloody locker inspections and shit. I had to do it because my job as the platoon sergeant of the place. Once a week, and they're warned that it's happening, but you go in there and the microwaves had something just explode all through it. And you're like, fucking one job, lads. It's once a week at exactly 9 o'clock. All you have to do is just make it clean. You could have ripped the microwave out and stuck it in a cupboard and just hidden it. But no, what do? That's how you present it. So you get the hall corporal or whoever it is, the person responsible, and you're like, mate, what's this? And you're like, and they're like, oh, I don't know. Sergeant, I don't know. Look, you're in charge, mate. Did you not do a walk around and make sure all your people are ready before the one dress inspection for the week, let alone check the common area? Oh, well, I think someone else, stop talking. You're the second in charge. You're now in charge. You go away. And that, they didn't like that either, right? Because it was like, you're fucking fired, But that's the reality of it. Oh, mate, you have failed to do your duty. You are second in charge. You step up and you're in charge. And mate, burnt through about 6 or 7 of those dudes real quick. So the old 1-800 complaints line lit up pretty quick. And it came sort of straight from whoever gets those calls down very quickly to me. So look, I did, like I said, I was a pain in the ass.
I think that's a symptom of peacetime, and you've deployed a few times, so you know what the reality is, and these guys haven't, so they're fucking just sort of letting things slide.
Yeah, that's right. And I really wasn't that dude who was saying you left a pouch undone, you've killed your whole section sort of shit. That wasn't it. It was you need the attention to detail because it's important because you're setting the standard for your troops when you leave this place. But it wasn't like I was training them to do room clearance drills or anything like the SF dudes would, might need to do. It was just this is what you do when old mate's DUI, or this is what you do, debating and things like that. I've already said, just to give them some practical skills, because I wasn't allowed to teach them anything that was on the syllabus, because then there could be, people would be like, oh, you taught them a first class thing and they're only in second class now. They've got a leg up on their contemporaries that are in, oh, for fuck, righto, let's go and do stuff that's outside the syllabus and those things. So nothing drastic, like not making them run up and down the hills like we did at Singo or any of that crap. No punishments like that. Sorry, lots of punishments, lots of show parades, So for the 15th time, when for that 1 day a week, I had to, one fucking day a week, you go in there and you look at the stuff that's hung up and it's not ironed, it's not washed. And you're like, holy fuck, just 1 day a week, bro. Look, what do I do here? Do I just pretend I don't see it? Or you know what? You're fucking working weekend, mate. Take this, 2 extras, show up Friday, Saturday, Sunday at 9 a.m. and show the duty officer. And I'd rock up there because I lived on pace and I felt it was the right thing to do. If I'm giving them extras to show up, I want to make sure that they're showing up. And I wasn't there barking orders, I was just off to the side, standing there to make sure. So I was sacrificing my time too. But I was holding on pretty tight, right? I was holding on to a lot of shit. And I probably didn't need to do any of this shit. I could have just let it all go and let them fucking play PlayStation. So I just didn't feel it was right. And look, I'm actually mates with a couple of those cadets. And for what it's worth, they actually appreciated what I did, those people. I'm sure there's ones that want to trip me over or push me down the steps. Mm-hmm. But they actually appreciated what I was trying to do there. So I held on to that and hoped that I was trying to do some good. But what happened is I was just holding on to too much. And I went to a Chinook reunion while I was at RMC back up in the Ville, flew up there and got on the piss with the mates and they, we had all the slideshows up rolling and all the pictures of Chinook stuff and the crashes from 101, 102, 103 and all that, and everyone was sort of, having a great time. And, one's not enough, 100, well, one's too many, 100's not enough beers, right? The good training that I had from my days in the 3rd Battalion. So we'd all drink too much and carry on. It was that night I had what felt like was when I got out of the pool. When I was shaking, could not control myself, I was just laying on the floor, fucking freaking out when I woke up.
Yeah, having a panic attack?
Yeah. I don't know what a panic attack was, but that's what it turns out to be, right? So, and it wouldn't go away. And it was just these feelings of how I've let everyone down, I've let myself down, you're a shit human, not necessarily awful flashbacks or anything, but moreover just that impending feeling of doom. Like, what the fuck is this? Must be because I drank too much, right? Then on the piss, fucking calm down. I go out for a walk. Anyway, luckily the dude I was staying with, he was an ex-crewie, went over to the nursing corps and he fucking knew straight away. And we're out getting Dirty Bird or something for recovery feed the next day. And he's like, mate, what's going on with you last night? I'm like, oh, mate, I don't know. Had a big one, mate. I don't know. He goes, dude, that's not normal. What's going on for you is not normal. And don't bullshit me. Like, you got to go and get some help. That's a panic attack. And if you're having those, you've got to look into this. I'm like, fuck, mate. No. Panic attacks are for dudes who kick down doors and shoot people in the face, right? Later on, who've seen combat and done real things. Last thing you want to be is one of those imposters or Walter Mitty's and try and elevate yourself to what you think is a level of a real warrior, right, who should be deserving of these issues. And so I was really trying to cover that up. But when I came home, I spoke to my wife about Kate and I said, look, this is what happened. She's like, yeah, that's pretty serious, right? You need to get it fixed. So I spoke to the chain of command. They're like, go and see medical. What do you want? So I go and see medical and I said, look, no holes barred. This is what happened. I clearly need to start discussing shit that's going on. And then they sent me to, I couldn't see a psychologist in Canberra because my wife's a military psychologist and, there's not conflicts of interest, but, you'll go out for dinner with them and you don't want to go and see these people. So the only place they could send me to was Sydney. So now I had to fly to fucking Sydney to see some forensic psychologist for whatever reason. straight away, mate, within 3 seconds, he's literally ticked 4 boxes on this sheet that DVA have given him to assess me. Alcohol misuse, post-traumatic stress, drug dependence.
What drug? Opioid.
I didn't take any. None at all. And there was another one, and it escapes me what it was now. General anxiety disorder or something like that. I'm like, mate, I've never said at any point I take any drugs, and I hadn't. So how are you ticking me on all these boxes within 20 minutes of saying I now have post-traumatic stress, I now have this and that? So that really led me to think back to this malingerer feeling like, oh, people are going to think that I'm hamming this up. I don't have post-traumatic stress. I don't have any of this. This is bullshit. Yes, I drink too much. But that's the culture of what we do. Anyway, went back to the army. They're like, oh, how did it go? Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Went back to work until all the files showed up. Medical's like, you fucking need to come and speak to us, bro. Went there and said, oh, look, okay, well, what's the next steps here? They sent me to an inpatient course at South Coast Private Hospital in Wollongong. And this was, mate, it was exactly like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, if people know what that show is. It's, you get into a white dressing gown. It's the top floor, it's the psych ward. You get into a dressing gown and you go and do group activities like colouring in. Things like this. And look, this is not to rubbish those people that do it, but the colouring in is meant to ground you and keep you to focus on things, and that's great. I didn't see the value in it for me. You have to go to the window where the medication was, and you get your little cup, and you had to take your medication and then lift up your tongue and show the nurse you've had it. And when I said, oh, look, can I just go and get a pizza or something outside? He's like, no, you can't leave, mate. You are not allowed to leave this facility. I'm like, I fucking came in here as a volunteer. So I came in as a volunteer and they locked me in there. And now I'm walking around in a dressing gown with all these people doing colouring in, and they're all talking about, oh, look, I'm going to claim for this, I'm going to claim for that. You know, I'm going to get this out of DVA. And I'm like, this is a toxic environment for me to be in. And they're like, oh, Rod, come and sit with us and do some colouring in as a group. And I'm like, fuck you, fuck all your group, fuck the colouring in. I'm going back to my room to watch the football because my nights were getting hammered on TV, and I love watching them get smashed. Fuck, it's been a long time since their last grand final, I tell you. But then I'm on suicide watch now, right? Because I don't want to be part of the group, and I've shown aggression and I want to keep to myself. And I'm like, fuck, I want to be left alone. Like, I'll do whatever you need me to do to get out of here. So I told them whatever they wanted to hear. I took whatever drugs they wanted me to have to get out of there. Because the counsellors that they had were like a 20-year-old Indian lady straight out of university. And I'm not trying to say I'm racist here, but the Indians have a very different culture to what we have. So one of the classes was alcohol misuse and how terrible we were. And she's just throwing shade at us like, hang on, what do you mean you have alcohol in the house? I'm like, well, fucking of course you do. I'm like, well, do you have it in your fridge? Well, fucking of course. Like, where else do you put it? You keep it cold. So she's like, hang on. So you're telling me that not only do you have alcohol in your house all the time, it's always available in your fridge and that. And I'm like, yes. You don't?
That's fucking how it works.
You don't? She's like, no, we don't have any alcohol in our family. And like, well, maybe that's a cultural thing that moreover you don't. So there were straight away walls went up again, right? So that was a real barrier to me taking in any sort of help. And so when I got back, I was shown as, you know, not being part of the program and shutting it.
That's a pretty fucking heavy thing for, if you're still serving though, like to put you in a program like that.
Mm. Yeah, it was, mate. It was because they did exactly what we were talking about before. As soon as I was having mental health issues, they took me straight off the tools. So, cool, no going to the range, no driving trucks. And look, I can understand the thinking behind taking away someone's access to high-capacity automatic weapons when they're not well. But what that did to me straight away was it took away my purpose and my identity immediately. Mm. And now my mates were going, hey, Hendo, how come you weren't at the range with third class helping out doing safety sweeping? You know, you couldn't even help driving a truck. Now our mate's got to do 2 trips and all this shit. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I can't tell you. What do you mean you can't tell us, you fucking linger? So I end up driving a desk out of sight, out of mind in a corner and just getting worse and worse and worse because now I'm thinking everyone's talking about me because I'm linging it, right? So that made things so much worse because now I didn't have a purpose. My identity was being a soldier. That was being taken off me. And every time I'd sort of go and get help from a psychologist, it was, again, explain to me what's a chopper or what's helicopter underwater escape training? Why do you do that? And that I understand the need to build that, but I just fucking didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. And it frustrated the shit out of me. I wasn't getting better. I was doing to a degree what I thought I was supposed to be doing. And discharged out. They just put me on permanent leave 6 or so months later, discharged out, get a phone call, you're out of the army. Cool. Fuck, thanks. Got a little certificate, my record of service log. Off I went. What next? And look, I was very well supported through DVA. I had done all my claims and everything for all the bloody physical injuries I had and also for mental health side of it was all done. So I literally stepped out of the army and then the next day I was under the pension scheme of the VA. So I was very lucky. And the VA system is an old one for crusty people like me, pre-2004. Changed it with the Mercer, et cetera, et cetera. But what I'm saying out of this is I was now financially supported as much as a sergeant is on that level of income. But, oh, shit, here we go. I'm breaking things with my fat ass. But I was well supported and I was supported medically with free medical. So I just did what sort of a lot of people chose to do, and that's go and get a farm and get away from people. So we moved and we went on a little hobby farm. We tried that, we loved it, and then we bought a place just down the road and made that our own. Fortunately, before the house prices went ridiculous, and then just threw myself into everything that was hobby farming because I'm now at home off work, and my kids think that I'm sitting at home all day doing nothing like a loser. I have to be doing something all the time. And my mates on social media and stuff are out there still flying or deploying or doing cool shit, sending me funny texts of, me stuck behind a keyboard and them out doing door gunnery or some shit ripping it into me. But I just felt there was an underlying judgment of you're linging it off work. Well, that is the way I felt. This certainly wasn't what any of them thought. But I just had in my own loop that you are not at work. You need to be seen as doing something because only bludgers and lingers are not contributing. So whenever I did something on the farm, I would do it by hand like I was a grunt again, like digging holes, it was by hand. Putting in irrigation, I'm digging those holes, by hand as well, primarily. Fencing, everything was with the old dolly, smacking in every one of those bloody star pickets, and I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of them through rocket time. So real quick, my 40-odd-year-old body was not keeping up with my 20-year-old brain, and I free medical though. I'm like, fuck it, it'll be right. And the surgeon's like, are you serious, mate? You're back. Next time I see you on the operating table if you don't stop. I'm like, fucking free medical, bro. That's how fucking stupid I was, right? So double carpal tunnel surgery. I stuffed my hands. Had to get those done. That slowed me down for a while. I still kept going though. I tore my elbow because now I was trying to hold my hands in such a way that I was causing other things to work harder than what they needed to. So I ripped the tendons in my elbow, surgery. So I just did everything on the left hand now for a while. Stuffed the meniscus in my knees from doing stuff on my knees because I couldn't bend over and dig with the back injuries I had. So I'd dig from my knees. So then I tore all the stuff in those back on the operating table again, right? Because I just couldn't be told. What I was doing in hindsight is I was self-harming, fucking just to feel like I was normal and contribute and kind of punishing myself in a way because I was a linger. I was off work. I must be this dull bludger. So I was really punishing myself hard. And I felt that was the way to do it. Well, that's the grunt way to do it. You punish yourself hard. You go out and you smash yourself on a run or whatever it is. That's how you work through it.
Drinking still as well?
Oh, ramp that up good and proper, I can assure you.
What was home life like?
Mate, good. And look, this is where I'm really lucky, because you hear a lot of these stories of people that just start falling apart. But Kate stuck with me through the most tumultuous time and risk-taking self-harm course I've ever been on. Fortunate maybe because she's a psychologist and she understood, but like I said, she's known me since we were fucking kids. So look, I had her support to a degree. There certainly were some times where we weren't so great because she was frustrated with my lack of acceptance of what I was doing and hurting myself. But, and the amount I would drink. But I never bashed her. I never bashed my kids. I loved them and did all that. So, there was none of that happening, but it was certainly impacting upon me being a father and a husband with all my self-destructive behaviour too. So, and I was doing that because I'd come from such a high tempo, adrenaline pump and job, flying in choppers, doing cool shit, to suddenly now, what am I? Well, and now I was starting to have problems doing the stuff I thought was my new purpose. And then now had all these operations which just fucked me, which just made it worse after these operations. And in particular, I had I went down and I was slashing a mate's paddock for him with my tractor. You've got to have a tractor, you're not a hobby farmer. So I bought this monstrous tractor that has no purpose in being on such a small hobby farm, but I was fucking rocking it. Made me popular with all the neighbours because I could, do things like, move sand and slash paddocks. Anyway, I told this bloke I'd slash his paddock for him. And about 10 minutes into doing that job, I was reversing back and something flew out and smacked me in the arm. I thought, fuck, that hurt. Like, it really hurt to the point I couldn't use my hand. And I thought, well, I've cracked a bone or something in it. I'll just do everything with my left hand, steer and lower and raise that. And it's a couple of hours work. I'll get it done. And so it was still hurting that night. And the next morning I went to the hospital and I said, I think I might have cracked a bone or something, because I had something spit out and I had this tiny little drop of blood just on my arm, tiniest little nick. And look, even the medics were down there, were like, we heard there's a tractor accident, and they wanted a slasher accident. So they all came in to see, and I'm like, it's literally a drop of blood, mate. And they're like, oh, fuck, we expected, mangled something, because they're all excited something was happening. But old mate's like, there's nothing wrong with it, mate. You've copped a scratch, antibiotics, off you go. It's swollen, it'll go down. And eventually, a couple of months later, the swelling went down. Still a fair bit of pain in there for whatever was happening, but I thought, it'll be right. Keep going. Don't quit. Don't be a linger. Keep moving. 6 months later, I was sort of servicing my tractor, slipped off and bashed my hand, and these two fingers, I lost feeling in them, and these ones here were all tingling, and I'm like, well, that's not good. So I went back down to the hospital. I'm like, hey, I've banged my hand. I think I've cracked a bone this time. They do a scan and they found a 3 centimetre piece of wire in my arm that I'd just been ignoring. It had shot in underneath here, come in under rest, missed the artery, and was sitting in there, and I'd been putting up with that just to feel like I need to keep going and need to focus and not let these physical injuries hold me back. And that's when the wheels fucking fell right off, because now I had to realise I have to do something what's going on up here and not try and work my way out of it or find a solution and come to terms with it, right? And I didn't want to. The only way I thought there was the best way to do that was to rid myself of being the burden on myself and family. So I decided I was gonna go through with it and take my own life at this point, and I won't get into the specifics of it. But one sort of intrusive thought builds on others, right? And it's amazing how your brain starts firing these awful thoughts into you about how much of a shit human you are. And one sort of built upon the other. And I decided, well, that's it. Let's do this. I think I call it "Let's Get On With It," or "Get On With It" in my book. But right then at that moment, I had this intrusive thought that was positive, and it was, well, what are you going to do to your family? Because my son had only just been down. give me some water because I was doing some log splitting and stuff. And I thought, what you're actually going to do here is you're going to ruin your kid's life, right? And you're going to ruin your wife's life. And all you're doing is pushing all your pain onto them. Mm. And I'm not going to sit here and lecture people and drag people through the mud that have taken their own lives. That's not what this is about. For me, it was that positive, intrusive thought that saved my life, and realised that I was just pushing this burden onto them, and that was unfair. So that was it. That was my turning moment to say and to cut down any bullshit, and just I went back to the house and I said to Kate, I'm fucking crook. Like this is bad.
Did you tell her what you're doing, didn't
you? Yeah. Well, I told her everything about the point I was at. So it was that point I decided to stop the bullshit and accept help psychologically and through the medical system to take the drugs they were giving me and to work on it. And I'd love to sit here and say that all worked and it went well. It didn't. It was shit. Bits of me didn't work because of the drugs they had. Bits, I got more aggressive on some medications. Other medications, I was a drooling fucking idiot. I never really found something for me that worked, which just made me feel like I was back on that merry-go-round of I can't get better here. So what I did then realise is that there was a lot of choice that I could have, and in the military you don't have a lot of choice, right? You just have a doctor that says you have to do this, you have to do that. I found that I could actually get a different psychologist if I wanted to, or a different doctor, one that I clicked with and I could trust and open up to. And from that point I did. And I was able to sit down then and start working on ways of understanding what was going on in my head. And it's not fixed. It's not a perfect problem. I still have panic attacks, a lot less now, but I understand why they happen. And I've got a bit of a clearer understanding around when they happen. I still don't understand why they happen. So it's still a shit show upstairs, but now I acknowledge that. Fucking not perfect. But it doesn't have to be your whole being. Like, you can still live with this and accept it. Now when I feel myself getting crazy, it's an awful hole to be in. But now I understand when it's happening, how it's happening, and this too shall pass. And I've just got to ride that out. It would be easy to sit at home and just live at home and do fuck all. But I just refuse to do that, because the minute you stop doing something, you won't start doing it again. And then what else do you give up? What else after that? And then next thing you're just sitting at home in a fucking dressing gown. Mm. So I was lucky when I was in that woe is me. Things still aren't really working. What am I going to do? Where? A friend of mine said, you get off your ass and get into the war memorial and start volunteering. And, mate, she was spot on. I fell into sort of everything there as a volunteer role, and it found me a way to give service again, and not to just focus on woe is me all the time. You go into that war memorial and you see those names on the wall and you just realise these are people that would have begged to have one more day, you know. So who am I to whinge and bitch about my plight and end my life when these people sacrificed everything they would have wanted? They would have wanted a life, right? Mm. So that gave me great context about my own situation, and I just said, you know what, you've got to get up and you've got to go. You've got to keep moving, and one day is going to be shit, either physically or mentally. I mean, you've seen how many times I've adjusted myself in this chair. My back is rooted, but there are still some really good things that you can do. Like, I should be one of those dudes who just sit at home doing fuck all because I'm a TPI, right? On total permanent incapacitated, or whatever it stands for. Okay. But no, there's still things that you can contribute. You can contribute in some form or another, and that is what I try and do each day, and that's what I fell into with the war memorial, doing guiding. So I talk about Australia's wartime past, primarily First and Second World War, and I take the public through and tell them what our soldiers did. You know, there's so much sacrifice, First World War. And then, you know, from there, some of the gallery redevelopments. So there's like $500 million worth of renos going on at the war memorial at the moment, right? And one of them said, oh, well, can you help do the peacekeeping galleries because you're on a peacekeeping operation? And here's the idea of what I'm doing. I want to do a diorama around the landing at Dili. Would you know anything about that? And I'm like, I seriously thought he was taking the piss. I'm like, you fucking, mate, not only do I know about it, but those little people that, because he said, oh, I want to do a little diorama with people moving away from the Jervis Bay, the first out of the port, up the road. And I'm like, that will literally be my section, because we were the first section, the first platoon out of the first A company that went out. I mean, 2R had come in and secured the port, and I'm like, I will literally be one of those little figurines. And I'm like, the deal is, if you're going to do it, I want to be just that bit bigger than everyone else. And I want machine guns and shit. But it was just like, what's the chances? So I mean, it's changed a bit since then. And I certainly have not set myself up to be in that at all. But it's really cool working on that with them. And then fell into, advice on the Chinook that's going to be in the galleries. That has been so frustrating because we have such a great plan of what we wanted on the helicopter, but we just got blocked at every turn by civilians in the system that just 4 years you still can't get certain things you need. So it's an ongoing process. And also for the Black Hawk in there, I lobbied the boss pretty hard on getting our Black Hawk in the War Memorial. I know the Navy people still want to punch me in the throat because there is a fantastic story behind one of the Seahawks that are in there. With the crew that did a fantastic job. My understanding is he got a MG, I think, for the work he did jumping in to save people. And I think that aircraft was going to tell a bit about that story. And look, I wasn't certainly there to take anyone else out of the War Memorial, but I just felt that the Black Hawk is such an iconic piece of Australia's wartime past. It has been involved in every single operation we have had. There are people that are on the rolls of honour because of the Black Hawk that have died in training or died overseas in it. My argument was, why don't we tell that story? And the boss agreed, the council agreed, and the Black Hawk's now in there, and the boss gives you big credit for that. And the Navy people want to push me down the stairs, but like I said, I don't ever want to take anything away from there. And if there was the opportunity, then put the Sea Hawk in there too. I just thought there was a great opportunity to tell a lot more of a story, and ultimately it wasn't my decision. I just pitched it, and
Gave you 2 cents.
Yeah, they went with it. So that was really cool to see that too. Right, we're almost there. We're almost there with the completion of that, but then one of the writers at the War Memorial said, "Hey, you've done all this we hear about. Why don't we write an article about you for the War Memorial?" I'm like, "Oh, fucking no, no, because." Again, the War Memorial isn't about me. It's not about you. It is about those people on the roll of honour. And in the military, you don't fucking talk yourself up. You let your job do the work. If you're talking yourself up over other people, we know what those people are like, right? And I thought if I ever do an article or start talking about my service at the War Memorial, no. So a year's worth of convincing and going back to my wife, she said, listen, your uncles, your grandfathers, we don't know this story. Write it down. Like, let them do it. And so I moment of vulnerability again and trust in this writer. And I said, okay, I will tell you what I did. But I'm not that exciting. I haven't done anything that's exciting. That held me back too. Anyway, so she said, well, write us a bit of a bio and a timeline of what you did and start filling out any important points along your career that you might think would be interesting. And with that, it's just like, there's a lot of shit in there, right? And then that ended up becoming what was essentially the backbone, the spine of the book, what would then go on to be a book. And when that article was released, I was terrified because now your story is out there, and I was worried that people would think I'm trying to elevate myself above. There's an article in there on the Kokoda Trail, and those dudes got like 500 words. Mine's like 4,000 words in this article. I'm like, Christ, let's keep this in perspective here. I think we've overgilded Lily on this. But she said, look, you've got an amazing story. You need to tell it, and you need to tell it to also inspire other people to come out and tell theirs, because no one's talking about this service, and we're spending $500 million on the War Memorial to talk about the last 20 or 30 years of operational experience. People don't feel like they can. So I figured that is something that hopefully, if I can be seen as having the minerals to do it, I might inspire others to come out and do it too. And that has been something really cool about the work I do at the War Memorial now, is I'll reach out to my mates and to friends of friends and say, hey, we've got this project happening. Would you like to help? And it doesn't have to be an official history. It could be just, have you got a pair of socks, or fuck, whatever it is you can provide. But also come and give your official history there too. It doesn't get released. It's held in archive forever. You can not have it ever released. But go and get it down. Because one day you might want it released, or your family might want to know about it, and they can keep it in the dark rooms on some disc that no one else knows about, but it's there. Mm. I know they're going to lose their shit if they hear this, because it's not a public program yet. They're not funded for it, but it is, like, it's a thing you can do, right, if you contact them. So that's been really good. And seeing some of the healing on my mates' faces that have now gone and been part of XYZ project, and seen, holy shit, what I did matters, and it's now, that story's now going to be part of whatever's for forever told, you know. So that's been really good, in being able to introduce other people into it. And there are people out there that I fucking hate, and I know there are people out there that fucking hate me, but I would never stop them from helping at the War Memorial, contributing to the War Memorial. And I often go out and ask all manner of people, hey, what about this and that? Would you like to come in and do this? Because it's not about me again there. It's about giving the opportunity for other people to say their part in what they did, because it can be absolutely healing. And so, yeah, once I let go of all that, this and that happened in the past, and you called me a shithead once, and now I'm holding on to that forever, like we tend to do as veterans. Once you let go of that shit too, fuck, life can be awesome. They can still have the shits on me, whatever, but I've let go of all that with the stuff I do at the War Memorial too. And someone says, oh, have you got contact with this and that? Or this person rang, and what do you reckon about him? You know, would he have a good story? I'm like, ask him. Good on him. Yep. Get into it. Let him come and speak. I mean, I'm not the gatekeeper, right? But obviously, you know, people ask people, did you work with such and such, et cetera, et cetera. So, no, the mantra is never speak ill of anyone. Let them all get their story, because everyone has a story. Yeah. You know, and everyone's got some shit going in their life that you would never know about. But this is why I love podcasts, because you learn so much about people, what they did. And now I scroll through podcasts, and if I see like really famous people, right, we know their story a lot. I really want to look for the unknown people. Like, fuck, your bloody story is incredible about the some of the stuff that you'd gone on. I'd never heard anything about it till I listened to your podcast. And it's like, fucking hell, the stuff you've been through, like I said, off air, particularly with your missus, and oh my God, you know, and their stories, they're human stories, and they all add up to what it is that you are as a human being. And that's what I find the most interesting, right? And that's what I hope to help other people with. Doing that at the War Memorial, getting their story down. Not necessarily about the special forces dudes roping in and stabbing Osama bin Laden. It's all those other stories as well I'd love to see told, and that's, I get a kick out of that at the War Memorial. Yeah, 100%. It's awesome. Getting them all out there, immortalising the veteran stories. Yeah, man, that's how the book came about, right? It just came out of that, and it's what you're saying about the negative stuff. People that watch this podcast, if you don't fucking like someone, just don't like them and keep it to your fucking self. Don't put in negative comments and fucking bag someone's story when they're being vulnerable on a fucking podcast. Move on. You know, you're not elevating yourself. You're only taking away from who you are by holding on to that shit. You're the one that looks like a piece of shit. I know, right? I know. Do you find the writing the book therapeutic? Honestly, no. No, everyone says, look, it's supposed to be a cathartic experience. That's one of the questions I get the most. Getting it out there on paper was initially, but now I talk about it a lot on podcasts, or I'll go and do talks. It's really not. And I didn't have the emotional intelligence to really understand that before I stepped off on this path, because you are constantly, like today, talking about some of the most insane moments of your career in great detail. And when you do, you're back in that space. So that's something I'm now finding peace with and confidence in, telling those stories. But that's always at front of mind. You know, it's not just write that, set, forget, leave it. And it could be if I didn't want to get out there and keep talking about it. But I really believe that regular shit kickers like me should have a voice, should have a story, and be able to go out and talk about it. Because I really do hope that me as a shit kicker can write that book, it gets published, for other people then to go, you know what, I'm going to start writing my own story down and saving it, like we spoke about before, for my family, for whatever, try and get in a movie, whatever you want to do, but start writing it down.
Yeah. Yeah, the biggest thing I hear with people that come on or that don't want to come on is like, no one's going to hear what I've got to say. No one cares about my story.
No one gives a shit about me. I'm a no one. Yeah.
Probably fucking two of the most biggest podcasts as far as views and interactions have gone have been two guys that are like, no one gives a fuck what I've got to say.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I love it, mate. In fact, my book, the first publisher I had, I'll leave out of it, they wanted it to be called Australian Soldier. And I'm like, no way. That's a heavy title, mate. And now you're elevating me to be the Australian soldier. And if you read my book, you know I get a lot of shit wrong. Like, I am not a very good soldier in there, right? But I'm a regular soldier. I get shit wrong. Anyway, you read it. But I was determined not to have that, and that's why I just wanted it, that, like, from the helmet patch I had, Stop Screaming I'm Scared Too, because it underpins the theme of what's through the book, as a regular shit kicker. And that's what I find resonates so well with people that reach out to me now, and they're like, mate, what you've written could have been about me or my service, not as a hero that we know, or not as, you know, some real high-profile general, but just as a dude who wrote the shit down, got it out there. People can love it, they can hate it, they can fucking scream at me, whatever. I don't know, but it's out there, and I'm really proud that it inspires bloody others. But as far as cathartic, it hasn't been, man. It's
reliving the past.
Yeah, it is. But look, by and large, it is good. You're not going to get rich writing a book. Fucking no. I don't think contractually I'm allowed to say what I get, but it's not.
It's fucking peanuts.
It's not much, man, and especially after GST comes out. Like, we're not.
When you told me, I was like, "What do you mean?"
We're talking not even a chocolate bar, right? And that's a chocolate bar on special. So yeah, look, but it is an opportunity. As it turns out, a book is a business card that gets you into other things, and for me, that was. People came and asked me to run the association I'm doing now, the Peacekeepers Association, and I have a lot of respect for peacekeeping, did a lot of it myself, but also by and large, the peacekeepers had been sort of pushed to the side from their service in the post-Vietnam era. Much like the people in Vietnam were pushed aside after World War II. You know, you didn't fight in a real war, blah, blah, blah. You don't really have a spot here. Hence why this association came up in the mid to late 90s to support people that have been on peacekeeping missions. And we do all the things that a lot of great ex-service organisations do, advocacy work for claims, look into medallic recognition, retrospective reclassification of service, things that are really important for a lot of peacekeepers, particularly when you're talking, right back into, Butterworth deployments and things like that, the way certain rules were written, which means the veterans of those areas now don't get certain support because it wasn't in their condition of service, and I think that that's wrong. So we do a bit of that as well, but it also gave me an opportunity to really get some things done that I thought were important for what I'd seen in the veteran space, and that is especially coming together, commemoration and connection. That's why I'm here in Brizzy at the moment, is for a reunion for our Namibian veterans. And I mean, who the fuck knows about the story about Namibia? But you know what? It's one of our success stories in peacekeeping in the late 80s, 89, where they went in, went in and helped secure Namibia, and it's now a fair and free democratic country in Africa. So they did amazing work. So from that, I want us to start sending our peacekeepers back to places they served. We saw great value that happened for the Vietnam veterans to do this, and this can be our point of difference from every other ex-service organisation. And I'll never throw stones at any other ex-service organisation. They're all trying to do great things. But this is what we want to do. We want to have this point of difference that we can send our peacekeepers back, and that's what we've got on the cards, hopefully starting next year, funding dependent, as a program continuing on forward. So people that are out there and may want to return to those countries, please get on board and join the Peacekeepers Association. Peacekeepers, Peacemakers, Veterans Association, to be fair. But we are after them to come in and come on board as members and help us get these things done. And if people would like a position in there, we're all volunteers. I don't get paid anything. The CEO title is really fancy, but it comes with $0. But it's a great opportunity to help. And if people say, hey, I've got an idea, I want to do X, Y, and Z, then I'm like, let me find money. Let's do this. If that's what helps you and your mates, let's get this done. So, yeah, the getting our blokes back to the countries they serve is one big one. With all the stuff I've seen in defence, how quickly you can go from normal to not normal and die, I have decided, we are building a monument in Canberra to people that have been killed in training, not just peacekeepers, all ADF members killed in training. We don't have that. I find it amazing that there isn't a monument for that, right? So we've got unbelievable support. The Chief Defence Force, General Cosgrove, John Howard, like everyone is on board, loves it. It's in its final stages of planning to get us a position on Anzac Avenue, which is the preeminent position for monuments. And it'll be a lovely monument, like there are so many, but what I want it to be is a point of connection for families and for friends who've lost mates who just went to work, APC rollover, truck rollover, fell off a ship, died in a live fire accident, crashed an aircraft. Those people who signed on the dotted line, went to work to defend this nation, didn't necessarily deploy but were prepared to, did everything that we did, and fortunately for a few of us deployed and got to do it, but those people gave everything to service in the readiness to, died, and who remembers them? No one. So that's what I'm determined to do, mate. That's great. It's a big project, but we've got a lot of good people behind us, and this is again why I ask for people to get in behind us with our association and help where you can. So look, to do all that, we're doing a dinner at the War Memorial next year to celebrate the opening of the Peacekeeper Galleries. We hope to raise some money. So come on down, have a nice fancy dinner. We'll all get dressed up and have a couple of beers, and there's some very important people coming along. You can hobnob with them and do all that sort of stuff. So, but mate, it's a different world to be in, and I'm fortunate that I've been asked to come in and do that. And I'm a digger, mate. I don't have a master's businessy blah. We just figure it out as we go, and we get the right people in to make sure it's done properly. And it's a fantastic organisation that gives everyone a voice. I love it, mate. So
it's beautiful.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we'll see where it takes us.
So one thing I wanted to ask before we wrap up. Obviously, you've done a lot of things in your service life. You're pretty introspective. You know, that book shows a lot of reflection and introspection. And you're super down to earth. If you saw somebody or knew of somebody in your situation where the wheels were starting to fall off, still serving, which a lot of people are in that situation, unfortunately, being through it yourself and getting to where you are now, what sort of advice would you have for them?
Keep doing the things you don't want to do. Do the things that scare you is what I say. So for some people, you may not want to leave the house because you may be afraid of X, Y, or Z or just hate other people, but you need to do that. I've suddenly developed this unbelievable ability to have a panic attack when I get on a plane. Where's that come from? Fucked if I know. Been on plenty of planes, used to jump out of them. There could be something going on there. Did crash in one, you know. And the psych's like, come on, this is pretty obvious. But I still get on them. I still do them. And I fucking hate it. But do the things that scare you. Keep showing up and doing it, because the minute you don't, you make concessions. then what's the next concession? What's that you give up? Oh, I'm not going to see my kid's soccer game because I'm around crowds. You need to be in the space. You need to push yourself to do it to get better. And sometimes that's going to suck, but keep doing it. And that could be for physical injuries as well. Get out there and kick a ball with your kid if you can. Be involved. Keep going. When you stop, you're done, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I know it's a bit high and it's a great way to end up with having a stroke maybe or bloody heart attack or whatever it is. But find a purpose is what I'm trying to say. Keep going at it. Don't give up and don't give in to just, oh, well, fuck it. I'll take the next PlayStation and just sit there and get fat and do that. So, yeah, keep going.
Push forward.
Yeah, man.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, dude.
Mate, thanks for having me. I bloody probably bang on too long. I should have warned you. I just don't shut up. But no, man, I love being able to hopefully, like, even one person out of this goes, you know what, fuck, that's worthwhile. Find a purpose, keep cracking on, and understand that changes all the time too, right? Don't just hang your head on, I'm going to be X, Y, or Z. Once you get there, what's next? What am I going to do next? For me, I got into battlefield guiding overseas, which is, oh, fuck, that's great. So I do it at Wollongong, and now I get to go overseas, Pozier, Mouquet Farm, Flanders, and tell the story about what our soldiers did in detail, walk the fields, take people along. And you look down when you're telling a story and there's fucking shrapnel on the ground. So I get to take people through there. So anyone wants to come on a battlefield tour, hit me up, come with. Mate, France, Belgium, the history there. And again, it's context, mate. We all think worse things happening to us, but go over there and see where these blokes died. I love it. So that's another thing that got me. And that's a quick plug for the battlefield tours. Hit me up. Yeah, come and hit me up. Come and do a battlefield tour. Yeah.
Nice. All right, man.
Lovely, mate. Thanks again. Awesome.
Nice.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.